Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 285. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. More murder, more mystery, more mayhem, more podcasting. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of you know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, Jim, you and I are going to be talking about books like Batman the Dark Knight #3, Superman #3, Justice League Dark #3, and Voodoo #3 as we continue our exploration of the New 52. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, this is the beginning of the month, which means they're going to be posting the brand new deals over at DCBService.com. So make sure to rush over to their site and see all of the savings you can get from shopping from DCBService.com for all of your pre-order needs. Over at InStockTrades.com, they're still running their Cyber Monday sale, which is 42% off almost all publishers, and they've got 80% off deals, not to mention the fact that they still have those DC Archive editions at 50% off. So this is the time to go to InStockTrades.com and start grabbing a whole bunch of deals. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping, so besides those amazing discounts, you also get free shipping. So I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show. James? What kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler show. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
We're a spoiler show. Let's talk some comics.
Lasers! He's got lasers!
Jim, our next segment's going to be Batman the Dark Knight #3. Paul Jenkins, writer, co-plotter. David Finch, penciler, co-plotter. Inker is Richard Friend. Colors, Jeremy Cox. Letters by Sal Cipriano. Cover, Finch, Friend, and Sinclair. Assistant editor, Ricky Purdon. Editor, Mike Martz. And Batman created by Bob Kane. This is an interesting book because we went from the previous Dark Knight series into this brand new one with a co-writer. And this was something I think that's only benefited this book. I went back and I reread the issues of the initial Dark Knight series, and it was good. I liked it, actually. I think when it was coming out, though, I wasn't as interested in it because of the delays. It is one of those books that I think suffered the first time through just because of the distance between the issues, where when you read them actually together, it was a pretty good book. I think the co-writer on this one has only helped, though, because I think it's taken a book that was a pretty good book before. I really enjoyed this issue because I did not see the Joker thing coming. Like, okay, I was like thinking the Joker's all jacked up on something, which isn't out of the realm of Joker possibility. How are you feeling about this book? Like, are you digging it?
Well, first off, I am digging it, but the path to digging it has been a interesting journey. Mm-hmm. For me, I echo your same sentiments with that you said before the reboot, how the delays did kind of take me out of my enjoyment of Dark Knight before. And when they announced they were going to do another Dark Knight, I was like, really? Come on, we got enough Bat titles. Let's drop this one and do something else. And I was thinking, drop this, maybe do a Shazam book or a JSA book or something else. And there's enough Bruce Wayne, there's enough Batman out there. We don't need another Bat title. Now, that was, of course, until I read it. As soon as I started reading this book, I'm like, okay, this is good. And it was one of those things where I read it, and I'm like, I'm glad they did it. And just as the story's building, as it's going on, this is something that I was just like, dang, this is, when you start pulling out your favorite Bat titles, and we always joke around about whichever one I'm reading currently is my favorite. This is one of those books where as I'm reading it, I'm saying, this is my favorite Bat title, and it's, visually beautiful book. Story-wise, a really cool story, and it's got all the pieces that I like in a Bat book. We got action, we got the detective, we got the cool relationship between Bruce and Alfred. We got his dealings with Gotham PD. It's a little different, a little strained. So I'm liking what I'm getting.
Jai, I like the girl that who's been featured in this series since the beginning.
Oh yeah.
And White Rabbit, I like her being brought in as. At first, I thought she was going to be like, oh, is she like a new Harley Quinn type character? What's going on here with her? But then, once we get the reveal in this issue that that's not really the Joker, she's a whole different kind of free agent.
It might, I was thinking kind of what you were thinking about, maybe another Harley Quinn or something. And then I was thinking, what if this is Silver St. Cloud? This is going to be the new version of Silver, and I'm just thinking that because of the white hair, but there's just so many different theories that go through my head as to who this could possibly be, or this could be 100% brand new creation that we're going to continue seeing down the line.
I'd be kind of disappointed if it turned out to be like Silver St. Cloud, only because I guess I'm assuming that's still, I guess I shouldn't assume that's still in canon, although a lot of Batman's history is. So I don't know, I guess.
Yeah,
it doesn't fit. Well, see, you haven't. How much Silver St. Cloud have you read?
I read the Kevin Smith story.
So you don't know her background?
No, I don't think I've ever read Silver St. Cloud in the regular series.
Did you get that omnibus, the Rogers omnibus that just came out?
The
Batman omnibus. You would know you'd have it. I mean, it was a big.
Yeah, I don't think I have that.
Okay, that had the Englehart Rogers stuff. Like the stuff that was featured in the trade, Strange Apparitions, The Dark Detective 2, all that kind of stuff. That really had her whole history as a character. This is a character who is like a socialite, and she's actually a lot closer to Jai. Jai's kind of a modern version of Silver St. Cloud, so to speak, quote unquote, than more so than White Rabbit. So I would not. I don't know if I'd really go for her being Silver St. Cloud just because of the history of the character. But that shows it's interesting how, because you have a more limited exposure to the character, you'd be very comfortable with that, where I'm kind of like, oh no, I'd just rather it be new.
Well, I'm of the camp that I'd rather be new, because you look at Batman's losing pretty much Poison Ivy. Yeah, she's dancing both lines. Harley Quinn's over, on Suicide Squad. We've got Catwoman really isn't a kind of villain for him. So I like the fact that if there is a female villain for Batman, I kind of like her style. I kind of like how they're using her and what they're doing with her. So I like the idea of this new villain who's out there, this new member of Batman's Rogues Gallery that we don't know exactly what she's up to, and we don't know where it's going to go. It's that mystery behind it, and I'm glad they're telling us new stories.
Yeah, I like her a lot. I'm with you. She's a new foil. I want to know what her backstory is gradually. Like I'm hoping that I'm assuming there's a backstory to this. They created a character study of Jai and what her whole deal is. But I mean, that to me is great Batman storytelling when you've got brand new characters brought in, and they're interesting. She's got like kind of a weird cross between Catwoman and Harley Quinn. So it's funny when you mentioned Catwoman, I wasn't thinking about her at first, but when you mentioned her, I'm like, oh yeah, totally in that wheelhouse as well of what that kind of character was. Because she's not quite as loony as Harley Quinn, which I like. I don't want her to be a clone of either of those two. But I like her having kind of a middle ground instead.
Oh, definitely. There's stuff from the past that you like, but there's something new about her, new and fresh. And again, I'm with her. 5-10 years, I'd like to know her backstory. How about that? So take your time with it. Put her in here. We could leave it where we really don't learn anything after this first story arc, and then later on bring her back for some more info. I'd be happy with that.
I love when you timeline out.
5-10 years.
Fine, 5-10 years, 10, yeah. 5-10 years, 3-4 years. I don't know. I liked how he discovered gradually through the way he was carrying himself, knowing how well that he would know the Joker, that it was Clayface.
Yeah. I gotta admit, didn't see that coming. No. I'm the same boat you were. I figured he just got jacked up with the super venom or whatever that toxin that's out there, and that was just Joker. And it was weird because at first I was like, really doing that with the Joker? And I was like, oh, okay, let's see what happens here. See how it plays out. But I was like, I don't know. But then when it turned out to be Clayface, I was like, oh, sweet.
Well, especially because we've seen Clayface recently in Suicide Squad and things like that. So it's great to see, that character kind of playing out.
Well, he's a good, versatile character to pull in and drop in anywhere. And it's, Clayface has that style to him, and he's the type of character that you can do these little appearances, 1 shots, 2 shots, and drop him in and have him, not be the main character, but be part of Batman's adversarial.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like when he's got what?
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah, I like it when he's got multiple things he's got to deal with, where it's not just one-on-one fighting.
Well, and I love that Clayface was dealing with his own bizarre reaction to this chemical, because it wouldn't affect him because of his morphing nature the same way that it would other people, but it had the potential to be very deadly to Batman. Like, I love that she was getting some kind of weird pleasure out of injecting Batman with it. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what her MO is, who she's working with, if she's working with anybody, or if she's a free agent for hire. Or, there's something interesting about her that I'm just curious to see. I loved the Flash becoming a part of this too. Well, because it's nice. It's I like this being kind of a Batman book where we're seeing his interactions with the Justice League present day. Because in Justice League, we're not really seeing that right now because they're telling the backstory. So, and we've seen coming out of Flashpoint at the end of it, we saw these two have that kind of meet and greet at the end. They've been together, they've been friends. It's clear that they're allies. So this would make sense to show us that this is a relationship that is a lot more common between the two of them. I like that. I like him being a part of the DC universe proper and using friends like this. I grew up with this Batman doing this kind of thing. And it's not the Batman I grew up with. What I'm saying is, though, this was something I always enjoyed in Batman, that it was common that this guy did team up with people and he was a part of the universe. And the Wildcat and characters like that would A Brave and the Bold was a book that was one of my favorites growing up. So seeing this kind of thing, I kind of like it a little more organic in the monthly title. It's because it's part of what's going on in the world. And Barry's great. I really enjoy every one of. We've seen a lot of Barry appearing around the DC universe actually, and I'm loving it because I'm very happy at the moment.
You're very happy or very happy?
Well, I'm a little bit of both. I don't know. Take your pick.
You're very, very happy.
That's right.
Yeah, you got the joke of call for backup and just team ups and just the general nature that it would make. It's nice to see that we don't have the dark, brooding Batman with the fellow heroes. That we have the Batman that they approach, that they can work with, and that there is a commonality, common ground between them. Yeah, they're a little bit different, and Barry's cracking a little bit more jokes than Bruce would, but it's good to see that team up, and it's something I like in this Batman. I like this style of Batman, the team Batman concept, the Batman that is approachable, but he's not approachable. Every hero feels like can walk up, hey, Bats, how's it going? You got to be on Batman's level. Barry Allen is on Batman's level. Hal Jordan, Superman. These are heroes who are on his level, and these are ones that he could actually have a straightforward interaction with.
Well, you know what else it is, too? These are characters who Batman has evolved. He's been through so much. We've seen it in the comics, that this guy's been through just a ton of things lately. I liked the dark, brooding Batman. We kind of talk about that now and look back like that was something negative. No, it wasn't. I liked that era. But the thing is, so many stories were told there. This is a Batman who's gone through all that, through his return and through seeing what happened with Team Batman and with Dick Grayson and all that, and now with Batman Inc. This is a Batman who it makes more sense to be a part of the world at large, to be more of a superhero than, the dark vigilante that he was before. I mean, yes, superheroes are vigilantes by their nature, but I mean, more of that premise to him. And I like that. I like that it feels like an evolution of this versus let's do a drastic character change. We haven't lost that. You mentioned him, not everyone's going to walk up and give Batman a group hug. And I'm with you. And that's something that I really enjoy about Batman is that hasn't been lost. This feels like the Batman who went through all that stuff. It just makes sense that he's this way now. That's what makes it great about seeing Barry Allen is that it's for storytelling reasons. It doesn't feel awkward. I want to compliment the artwork here, too. And actually, in lots of Barry's appearances, I'm loving The Flash as a title right now. It's a book that I just think visually has a style that matches the character. But we saw him in Captain Atom recently in issue 3. And then we saw him here. One of the great things is in both of those cases, actually in all three cases if you count his own book, you've got all three creative artistic takes on Barry Allen. where it's clearly that artist's style. But yet there is a consistency to his costume, to this being the New 52 Barry Allen, and stuff that's in there as well. I like that. I like that, the character looked slightly different in each book, a little bit, to fit the style of the book, but yet it was very clear that this is the New 52 Barry. He's got the lines going through him, the stuff that we're seeing energy-wise flowing through him when he's running around. I like that. There's a consistency there while not trapping the artist to not being able to have their own take. This is a David Finch version of the current Barry Allen, and it's great. It's like when you get a sketch at a convention and seeing an artist take on a character that you're really digging. I'm really having a lot of fun seeing characters appear in each other's books because of that. I want to see what that artist is going to do with them. This is neat. And it really worked here.
Oh yeah, big time. And I like the fact that we have this bright red and yellow and orangish, tints and the energy and the electricity in this backdrop of a Batman book. So you have this bam color splash of explosion, especially when he's bursting through the side of the car, he coming through with all the energy and just kind of just that power that's associated with him, and the speeds, just how they're drawing in the speed with the blur trail behind him. I really like the visually, this was the full creative team firing on all cylinders.
I also felt like, you mentioned Barry joking around a little bit. I liked that it felt like Batman was being a little tongue-in-cheek, too. And this is your idea of a rescue? I didn't feel that was like a negative. I felt like those two are in that kind of relationship level where they can do that, Because I don't feel like Barry would have been offended by that.
Right.
Now,
oh no, that was definitely kind of two people palling around. So there was definitely that's why I said there's a comfort level between these two, and you can see that and you can feel it immediately.
Yeah. The thumb being the recurring thing for poor Barry all the way through it too. But I liked it. Like, that's fun to see in this book. We're learning something new about Barry. This guy can get, while heals faster, he can get hurt along the way with his powers, and he has to be careful in thinking about them at that time too. That's that's something we don't think about with the Flash a lot of times when he's super speeding around through things. That there is some possibility for collateral damage to him as well.
Well, I'm glad that they actually had that kind of in there because it's the little bits and little pieces, and just that it's that element of realism. If you're doing, I don't care how fast you're vibrating your molecules or doing however, all the various things that Barry can do, there's still going to be some strains. There's still going to be some little subtle things. Now, I don't know how much of that was actually him injuring his thumb or him just, kind of goofing around, but I like seeing just battle damage. I like seeing these heroes go through the physical strain, especially the ending of that fight. Batman was kind of immobilized. Now, if Barry hadn't shown up, Bruce would have come up with something because he is Batman. But I like seeing that exhaustion in him because he is human. He does need to recover. He does need time to, just improvise and adapt.
Yeah, I agree. I like Lieutenant Forbes. I like that whole storyline going on with Gordon, where he's got, a personal issue going on. He doesn't trust Batman the way that Gordon does, and he's willing to show it. And he's made it a personal crusade of his to try and do whatever he can to, I think, kind of break up Gordon's, anything that would be a positive in what Gordon's been doing. So this is another way, I think, to get at Gordon by showing that Batman is bad, and look at Gordon's been putting his trust in Batman and that type of thing. He's got a certain mission going on. There's a story here to Forbes that I'm really enjoying following, seeing him be... I don't see Forbes ever liking Batman. I see Forbes being this constant person who eventually needs to be either taken down or he's going to be like kind of a thorn in Batman's side. But I like this better than the whole police force being after Batman.
Yes, and I kind of see it as a political move. Forbes wants Gordon's job. Mm-hmm. So, he's going to, you got to start, whittling at the base, whittling at the foundation. And right now, Gordon's in camp with the bats, so if he can make the bats look bad, if he can make that'll make Gordon's judgment look bad. And I see a couple future issues coming down the pipeline where we're going to see some intrigue, we're going to see some stuff going on with him, with Forbes causing Bruce some problems. And I'm actually, as soon as I started to see this, I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of cool. This is nice groundwork for some future stories.
Now, this is interesting how Batman's not just... his message for Forbes is not just about him. I think he's more concerned with people like Robin, Nightwing, Red Robin, Batgirl. These people that are associated with him is people. I don't know if the warning was so much about Gordon. It might have been some undertones of that as well. Because I think he's got to be very careful in how he presents his relationship with Gordon to Forbes, as far as he doesn't want to antagonize the pot too much for Gordon and to make bad things happen to Gordon. But it was an interesting thing how, you could take that undertone either way there, where is he defending Gordon? Is he defending, his people? I don't know. The implied threat kind of went a lot of directions for me on that. And I really liked how Batman did that, using Clayface as a opening salvo. That was terrific.
That was outstanding. Just the full page spread, coming down, krachoom. Just you really can kind of feel the echo. And I loved these couple panels and just these moments where Bruce is just, kind of, laying down the law. And it was funny because first read through, I kind of read it one way. Second read through, I definitely see what you're talking about with, you come after me, and it's, more of his people. But I kind of did read this as, because I really started thinking this was going to lead to a political side with Gordon. I kind of saw this as him laying down a threat against Gordon, and, basically kind of, it wasn't just about, Nightwing or Robin or Batgirl. It was also Gordon's included within that. You come after me, I'm coming after you, and you won't see me coming. And and that was something I was like, damn, that's kind of cool.
I guess that's what I'm saying, though. Bruce has to be very tactful in how he's presenting that, because he wants to put a warning in there, leave Forbes thinking, while at the same time not being explicit. Because sometimes when you mention specific names, you put in somebody's head to go after people more, if that makes sense. So I guess that's what I meant by he had to be tactful. You don't want to start saying, leave Gordon alone, because if Forbes can't directly go after Batman, antagonizing this guy and putting the name Gordon in Forbes' head is going to make... I love that I was reading this on that level. Like, I was actually trying to think about, well, why is Batman acting this way? And how's that... And not saying that the writer and the artist were maybe intending me to go that far with it, but I think that's a sign to me when I'm into a story, when I'm, like, spending way too much time thinking about this conversation between the two of them. I think that's great. This is a cool book.
Oh, yeah, big time off-the-page thinking there. And I did love that part where... when Forbes throws out the Bruce Wayne reference, he's like, Bruce Wayne means nothing to me. I am Batman with or without him. I love that line, and I loved how he put that in there. It was just that whole emphasizing who he is. And it made me think, I wonder if they're going to, down the pipeline, actually separate Bruce Wayne and Batman. And, even though I know we got Batman Inc. The Batman Inc. monthly series coming out, but I'm wondering if they're going to, if that's like kind of foreshadowing to some future event where Bruce and Batman have to separate themselves, and like actually maybe Bruce Wayne publicly, say, I'm not associated with Batman Inc. anymore. He's gone off the reservation. And I think that would be kind of a cool story arc.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go with that. I think there's plenty of time to play that out. There's easy ways to separate them without having to, reboot it like it didn't happen or anything like that. And actually, if they eventually, when and if they eventually need to do that, I like the idea of them kind of organically doing it versus a reboot. So I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go with it right now. There's still stories to be told there, though, because Morrison's Batman Inc. story has to, like you said, has to come to a conclusion. So. I wonder how that's going to be released. Is that going to become a brand new monthly book? Because I know they're doing a Batman Inc. #1, or is that going to be like a mini-series to wrap up what Morrison was doing? I don't know. So I wonder how that's going to be. I'm with you. I was under the impression that it was going to be a new monthly, but I don't know, because you were talking earlier about the amount of Batman books. I don't have a problem with another Batman book, to be honest with you, because they're all so different right now. I think I would if I started feeling like, wow, do we really need another one like this? But I don't feel like this book feels very different than the rest. And I do think it is its accessibility with the DC universe in general, the stuff going on with Jai, seeing him have relationships going on, the stuff going on with Forbes. It's showing us a different look at the police force. I think Forbes makes this book a unique feel as well. And Batman's exploration about this guy who's going after Gordon is something that they've really gone out of their way. It feels like it's a part of the same world, but like we're seeing it from a different angle. And that's something that's drastically important if you're going to do another Batman title, is to give me that feel. And it really does feel, it fits very well in there. I'm into this.
Oh, yeah, and we had some great Alfred moments. I loved when he's on his date with Jai that he sends him the text message saying, White Rabbit's been spotted, so Bruce knows that Jai isn't White Rabbit. I thought that was a really cool, just Alfred moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's funny, trying to figure out who she is. Well, here's the question. Does that mean that it's not her?
Oh, of course not, because,
Well,
let's
but
be honest,
you know,
it's easy to be someone else dressed in the costume and be spotted somewhere else.
although Jai would have to have changed the eye color, which she'd have to do for contacts, I guess, and
And skin tones, and I'm comfortable in saying that Jai isn't White Rabbit right now. I'd be really surprised, but to be honest, she could have a connection. There could be this whole large conspiracy where Jai is assigned to deal with Bruce Wayne because there is a Bruce Wayne Batman connection through Batman Inc. and Rabbit's is dealing with Batman. So for all we know, they could be completely connected and working together. I don't think it's happening, but you never know, and that's kind of the coolness behind the story.
Yeah, well, here's the interesting thing for me. I kind of I could see Jai going in a lot of different directions. There is a part of me, though, that I like her. I like her strength. I like the idea of him having a girlfriend and having to see him try to manage that as well. Because that's something that's always interesting, to see Bruce keep the secret and keep it managed at the same time with that. And eventually maybe the secret leaks or something like that, because he's got no other choice or whatever. I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see what happens with this relationship one way or another. I'm with you that there's always that possibility with any relationship that he has that it's going to go bad. Jezebel Jet comes to mind when I think about
it's
who I really liked as well.
She was a great character, and you're like, oh, sorry, Bruce. Looks like you got another one.
And I didn't see that one coming, Jezebel Jet. So this is kind of cool. I don't know. I'm interested to see where this goes. I love the Batcave. I like the shot where you get to see the cars. Speaking of artwork again, I'm always a fan of seeing different artistic takes on the Batcave. It's clearly the same place, and you see a lot of the same features that you're used to seeing, but it's still, a different artist's little twist on it. And that's we talk about Gotham a lot of times as seeing the city proper from an artist's perspective and seeing them do their own kind of take on the architecture and bringing the city to life because it is a character in and of itself. But the Batcave is also one of those places for me. What particular pieces, because you figure the place is huge from the way it's been drawn, and there's a lot of different angles talking about coming at it from a different angle to explore with the Batcave. And it's an important piece for Batman, because that Bat computer and being able to, how he got to going to Poison Ivy on this, and his questioning, can I trust Ivy? Can I not trust Ivy? Seems to have gone the straight and narrow, but now this evidence here is saying, hey, wait a minute, who else would have access to this type of flower? I love that kind of logic and detail in the whole thing. And like you said, the Alfred commentary there is just tremendous because of it.
Yeah, and again, also some cool art moments with Alfred's face in that final panel. When he's sipping the tea, you can kind of see the concern in Alfred's face and just of the unknown and what he's going into and what's going to happen. And I like seeing that Alfred does have these emotions towards him. We saw it in the Batman and Robin stuff with him and Damian. Alfred is this great character, this great person, and I'm so glad that all the creative teams are treating him correctly and giving him his just due.
I got a question. This whole bit with him can't go this alone. We'll have to go in quickly and quietly. Sir, let's just say I'll be working with a friend. Why didn't he just tell him the Flash? That was interesting to me, because it's Alfred.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It actually felt very Batman and very Bruce to me. But why with Alfred? That was funny that turned out that way.
Yeah, why would he do that?
It's actually one of those things. It felt real, though. You know what I mean? It felt like something you'd be saying, all right, what's the doofus doing now? It's like you'd say about a friend, you know what I mean? Why is he behaving that way? Why is he being so cryptic? It's not like it's odd for Batman to be cryptic like that, but it makes me wonder, because this is something we don't know. Who knows what about the heroes? Do they know? We know that Bruce knows Barry's identity from the end of Flashpoint, and that Barry's been to the Batcave. What does Alfred know?
Yeah, I would think Alfred's got top access and anything Bruce knows, Alfred knows, but maybe not. Maybe in the reboot, there's some stuff that Bruce is keeping from Alfred.
I don't know.
And on one hand, I would I'd like to see Bruce completely trust Alfred, but on the other hand, there is some logic to limiting what Alfred knows, because the more he knows, the more dangerous it is for Alfred. If the enemies of the Flash knew somehow that this butler knew about Barry Allen, knew about the Flash and all that, that would make him a target for all the Bat villains as well as the Flash villains. So in a way, you could say he's maybe protecting Alfred by not giving him the information, but I don't know.
Well, here's my question. Did they make a pact spouses and significant others don't know? I mean, they don't have spouses, I know, but what I'm saying is, as the Justice League, did they, what kind of rules do they have for each other and that type of thing? And how much do they know about each other's identities? Like, Barry knows that he's Bruce. Who else does? Like, we don't know that yet.
Right.
That's something that hasn't yet been revealed as far as who knows what and how much is past. I don't know, and I find that interesting. It's funny how that was something. I think that's what triggered it more than I was concerned about the relationship with Alfred and Bruce. There, it made me wonder. I'm like, boy, that's something we really don't know yet. With the fact that we're seeing the birth of the Justice League. Granted, it was 5 years ago to this storyline, but we don't know how that plays out yet because we're not seeing them currently, except in little appearances here and there. And I like that. I like the mystery. It's an interesting mystery to me. And it was funny how this book thematically felt like a part of that universe. Just because of that little moment, it made me think of the Justice League because Barry's in here. I don't know. I really dug the team up for that aspect, too, because I feel like more and more I'm curious about it. So it was very timely to have these guys present day together because we don't see many present day appearances of the Justice League as a team yet.
Right. It's all, so far, it's still the building. So, yeah. And I tell you, I loved just the kind of that one little comical moment when he stubs his thumb on the thorns, like, man, someone's got in the thumb, and Bruce is like, just do what I say and run. I love just that whole dialogue right there, especially once Barry realized exactly what Bruce was talking about. And he's like, because he is a scientist, he knows exactly. As soon as Bruce started explaining it to him, he goes from the one panel where he's not powered up to the next panel where you start seeing the yellow lines, forming. You see him energizing, and boom, he's gone. I love just that transition.
Well, and the great part is that there's a possibility then for Barry to come back in later in the storyline. I really like how that, or not. I mean, it's either way to exit him permanently or to bring him back in later. But I loved that Barry finished the thought. Bruce didn't have to explain it to him. Bruce introduced the concept. Barry finished the thought. I liked that, too. That was something about how that was written as well that I really enjoyed. And the visual, you're right, was terrific. This creative team really is working well together on all thrusters. It's, everybody. And I think this book's all the better for it. I mean, and I've been a fan of this book, and I know you were saying this earlier, just to clarify. Issue 1, 2, and 3 of this title have been absolutely tremendous. I just the Bat books right now are batting very high end for me. And this is one I would recommend anybody listening to this. If you didn't read the first series, or maybe you jumped off the first series because of the delays or whatever, you can easily jump on issue 1 of this, 1, 2, and 3. And get into this book. Give it a chance because it's this being so timely and all that. I'm very into the storyline and the characters, and it's not a one-trick pony. There's a big, supporting cast going on in here. There's more than one thing going on, and I love the depth of this. The whole Ivy thing. Now, This leads me to believe: is Ivy going to be involved in this, or is there somebody else?
I'm thinking we got somebody else. I think there's a different plant person and or veggie type of creature, or it could just be Ivy's not there and because she's doing her stuff with the birds. I think we got a whole different party. I don't think Ivy's involved with us. And again, who is the White Rabbit? Maybe White Rabbit's a botanist. We don't know. And I like the fact that we have so many mysteries when we're done with the end of the issue that we're like, okay, let's see what's happening next. It keeps you into it. It keeps you in the story. You're like, okay, I want more. What else is going to happen? Who is this? And just off-page thinking has really gotten me into this title.
Yeah. And one of the cool things I like about it as well is there's also that possibility that Batman and Poison Ivy could team up, and we'll see further clarification of where Poison Ivy actually stands. You know, is there a gray area there? Is she more on the side of the Angels? And what maybe from Batman's perspective, what's leading her there? You know, as she interacts with, you know, does she get a thumbs up and a nod from Batman or not? You know, so there's that interesting possibility of coming at this storyline as well. Or, you know, because, as he said, he doesn't trust the current birds because they're outlaws? I don't know. Did you hear who's going to become part of Birds of Prey?
No.
Do you want me to? Well, I guess I should say it's news. Yeah. It was on the source, so this isn't something like I'm revealing that wasn't revealed anywhere. Actually, anybody listening to this, if you don't want to know who's going to be a part of Birds of Prey, jump off the end, because this is the wrap-up of this segment anyway. So you can jump off right here, and I won't spoil it for you. But Batgirl.
Ooh.
Officially.
That's interesting.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic comes into play with the current team members on there. And they announced, I think, as of issue 4, she's joining. So next month.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's a character who, I mean, Barbara and Black Canary back together again. You know, or together again for the first time.
I guess we'll find out. We'll get we should probably get a definitive answer if there was a Birds of Prey, if they were a team up this, you know, when that comes out.
I'm guessing no. I'm guessing that this is going to be the first. I'm guessing that we're going to find out that Black Canary, because we already know Black Canary and Barbara know each other because they've already met up. We saw that happen. But I'm guessing the Birds of Prey, at least the way we knew them, didn't.
Right.
Or if it did, it was on a very limited level. I think it's more of them partnering up came about. I wonder if it wasn't when Barbara was in the chair, maybe she did some Oracle-like stuff as a consultant with Black Canary. I don't know. You know what? Here's the beauty of it. I like the idea that we're going to find out. I don't need to know right now. I want to read it. I really, with all this stuff, it's like, I was a big one before. I know I mentioned this on the show before. I was thinking, it'd be great to have a history of DC Universe again. I don't know that right now I really want that. I like finding this stuff out organically in the stories. I think that the way they're doing this is so much better than what I could have. You know, I wouldn't be upset if they did a history of the DC Universe. I'd be into that. But right now, I'm really enjoying the excitement and anticipation of finding out. Like, you know, what does Alfred know? What doesn't he know? I want to find out in the stories. I mean, that stuff is fun. Those are questions that I'm asking, but they're making me interested for the next issues and next appearances of Bruce and Barry together. And are we going to see Barry in Batcave again? I don't know. Those are things they're questions I have, and I'm curious for them. Like you said, your whole I was joking around with your whole 5-10 year thing that you were talking about earlier. But this is the kind of stuff that carries stories and characters and interest in them for decades. It's the fact that you gradually along the way will find out that's serialized storytelling. Yep. You know, I don't want to know it all right now. I want to discover it. And that keeps you wanting to read. So this is a great book, a really entertaining book. And I'm thrilled for it because, you know, after the rocky start the first time through, it's great to see, you know, putting the co-writer in there, or co-plotter, in this case, you know, writer and an artist together, I think has only benefited this book. And it's nice to see this book coming out monthly. It looks great. It reads great. And, this is one that really benefited from a relaunch.
So, who's got a camera? Ooh, get one of me and the kid first. Then you and me, then the three of us, and then one with the crowbar. Then...
And our next book will be Superman #3 with George Perez on scripts and breakdown, Nicholas Scott pencils, Trevor Scott inks, Brian Buccellato, Brett Smith, and Blonde doing the colors, letters by Carlos Mangual, with the cover by Perez and Buccellato, associate editor Will Moss, editor Matt Idelson, and of course, Superman was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster.
You know, this is one of those books that, first of all, I'm a huge Nicholas Scott fan, so seeing her on Superman and the opportunity to do this, it's got to be interesting as an artist to work via somebody else's breakdowns. It really has a nice flow, you know, a nice like Perez Scott feel to it. Like I see her in it, I see his style in it. It's kind of a nice meshing, and it's just kind of an interesting little take on it. This book looks gorgeous. I've enjoyed Superman since the first issue. This was again, we talked about this with Action Comics when the first issue of that came out. I didn't know how I was going to feel about the whole Superman world. I am loving Superman. I'm loving Supergirl. I'm loving Superboy. I'm loving Action Comics. All of it's really nice for me right now. This and Superman, honestly, out of all of those, was more the character that I was prepared to walk in really disliking it, because we've lost the Superman. We lost the parents.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no Ma Kent.
Dramatic changes in the Superman we were used to, and I was scared about that, but his universe has changed, but the man hasn't. There is still that that Clark Kent, the Superman that we enjoy, that I associated with and I connected with, and there was that person that I wanted to be his friend. I wanted to be Superman's pal. I wanted to be Clark Kent's pal. So I still get that, but we're getting some different stories out of it because of the parents being gone, because he's not with Lois. There is more of an outsider to him, when he is in the Clark Kent persona, because he doesn't have that support structure that he had in all the other issues, and it's leading for, again, more interesting stories. And for me, I want good stories. I want interesting stories. I want to see stuff like this. I want to see the man behind the costume. I want to see what he deals with on a day-to-day basis, and we're getting glimpses into who he is and what's going on with him, and I'm excited, and it's new, it's fresh, but it's still cool Superman stories. This is hitting on all cylinders for me.
Now, here's a question I have for you. When that whole freezing thing's going on, and Lois is potentially, at risk, we see him shout for her, in his mind. And Lois is the one, not Perry, not anybody else in there. It was Lois that he focused on. Do you think he knows at this stage? Like we saw in the previous issues that Lois has got a relationship and he's overheard her comments about him. And I know I'm jumping ahead, but I'm jumping ahead and back at the same time to the previous issues, because that relationship is interesting me. Do you think he is aware at this point that he has feelings for Lois, that he may be in love with Lois or whatever? Or do you think that this is something that he's discovering? Because if you see their relationship like in Action Comics, and even in the first issue of this, when he encounters her at her apartment, I'm not entirely sure that he knows outwardly that he has those feelings yet. But I don't know. What is your take?
My first reaction was that he does know he has those feelings. But again, on second and third read-throughs, I'm starting to think, I'm looking at it thinking, well, I don't know. I think doesn't realize that he's thinking these things. He doesn't realize. You get that point where you care about somebody, but you don't realize how deep they are to you and how important they are to you. And for me, with that the Heather Kelly, how she's been kind of flirting and wanting to get the Clark's attention, and and he's not paying attention to that, leads me to think that he is already thinking Lois. But it could simply be the fact that Clark is a loner and he's by himself, and he doesn't. When you get into kind of like that funk and that feeling where you think, okay, I'm all alone, I'm all by myself, you're not looking around you at the possibilities of other people being in your world. So in a way, I don't think he's identifying that it's a possibility yet. I don't think, and it's not even just with Lois, it's with anybody, that he's not thinking, hey, I could have a relationship, I could have a normal life.
Wait, how do we know he's not paying attention to Heather Kelly? And it isn't his life as Superman that's making her think he's not interested?
We don't know. I just took it as the conversation between her and the assistant friend of hers, and just how she's like, hey, you keep dialing yourself up for him, he's not noticing you, and the little banter between the two of them.
But could that be because he's showing up late and all this stuff because of Superman?
Oh, definitely.
That's what I'm saying is there. Yeah. I don't know that it's that simple. It could be exactly what you said earlier. I don't know, but that's not the only possibility. There is what I'm throwing out there, because it was funny as I was reading this issue again and kind of looking through it. I'm like, ooh. There's another possibility here that maybe Clark is interested in her, or, I don't know that he's reached that point that he's 100% knows about Lois yet. It could be similar to what we're seeing in Flash, for example, where we might be seeing Clark, because Lois is in a relationship, Clark pursuing potentially other relationships. I don't know. and I'm not against either option in that case, so I'm not saying I'm right or that I'm 100% sold either way. I like that right now there's a lot of possibilities on the table of what's going on, and I want to discover it.
Yeah, and when everything was first starting with this, I was like, but I want to see Lois and Clark back together. And I'm actually now of the camp that I would like to see Clark date other people. I would like to see Clark pursue other relationships and just, see, him try to juggle the life of personal life as well as hero with somebody other than Lois, with somebody who doesn't know his secret. I kind of like to see those stories and that play out in the Superman universe.
Well, and what happens if he's dating other people because Lois is? The love's there, and what happens when their relationship comes together? I eventually want to see Clark and Lois together. I'm 100% sold on that. But, I mean, I want to see it develop, which is exactly what you're saying. I'm agreeing with you 110%. And that's why I was saying, I don't know this Heather Kelly. I don't know that we know from this issue how Clark feels about her. We know how she feels about him and how Clark's behavior is making her feel and those around her feel.
Yeah.
But I don't know that necessarily means that Clark wouldn't pursue something with her or doesn't want to. This guy's really trying to juggle a lot, and that juggling that you're talking about is interesting. I love how Perry's reacting to Clark. I love that, Clark's behavior lately because of things that are going on with Krypton and all that. Clark's Superman life is something that people are noticing that it's throwing Clark off his game. He's being short with people. He hung up on his boss. These are things in the book that I'm like, wow, we're seeing both lives bleed over into each other, but that the other people, because they don't know the whole story, don't understand what's going on like we do. I feel like we're running buddies with Superman. I don't always feel like that in a Superman book. And my favorite Superman stories are the ones that I do feel like that. Sometimes he feels like too distant from me. Like they put him in this godlike pedestal. I'm not saying because of his powers. I think in some ways he's written where you got to constantly look up at Superman. And I like it better when I feel like he's that same guy you look up to in other appearances, but yet he's your running buddy. You feel there's an accessibility to him. We talked about the times where we saw him sitting with Blue Beetle in the previous storytelling with Superman, and they were having that conversation, and you're like, you always want to have that conversation with Superman, and he's accessible. The Priest and things like, For Tomorrow and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. I like those kind of relationships with Superman, and I think this is just being really well done here. Because there's a mystery here that we all want to see unfold. What do you think about Jimmy Olsen, the changes to Jimmy?
I like it. I'm really glad that Olsen isn't just golly gee willikers, Mr. Kent. Yeah, I don't want the goofy little kid. I want an actual photographer, and I want the realism behind him. That a lot of times these photojournalists and the photographers, you got to be a little bit crazy, and you got to have nerves of steel. How hard is it when you're taking a picture and you're just taking a regular picture and you kind of jerk your hand a little bit and it's blurry? Imagine if you're a professional where your livelihood is based on that and you're dealing with aliens from another planet blowing things up. You got to have a steady and a calm hand. And I liked seeing a more mature Jimmy Olsen who I feel could actually make those $1 million shots. It's a nice thing to see, and it reminds me a little bit back to Olsen Bug. That Jimmy Olsen who had who stood tall and walked tall and was proud. I was like, that's a cool Jimmy Olsen. I'm glad he's in this universe.
I like him being Clark Kent's pal, and seeing how that just changes the way that he's viewed in this, because he's Clark Kent's contemporary and they're equals. There's something interesting about that. We see it a lot in Action Comics. We see it here. And it's working really well. And that he's got like a sidekick with him and the girl that's working with him. I really like kind of seeing that fleshed out. Superman's supporting cast is one that really should never be ignored. And my favorite Superman television shows and Superman stories are always the ones where his supporting cast, you and I are both big fans of Lois and Clark. And one of the things that I loved about that show was not just Clark and Lois. It was, Perry White. It was Jimmy Olsen. It was the whole cast that was really Cat Grant. That was what the bullpen at the Daily Planet was a part of that whole thing. So I like that this book is, and introducing new people. This book is, I really like Heather. I want to see what's going to happen with her. So this is cool.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to lose her, but it's things aren't looking too good for her.
You know what? I don't think this is being introduced as a throwaway character, though. I really don't. I think that you're going to see a Clark. I think Clark's endearing qualities. He's a guy you trust. You know what I mean? So Clark's one of those guys that can get away with certain things like what he's going through in his life because he's an honest, nice guy. And I like that there's something about him that like she's attracted to, because you think about this, he's the nice guy who has kind of a danger aspect to him. You know what I'm saying? So like for her seeing him from the outside, he's got like it's a nice guy with a bad boy thing going on almost, because like he's being rude and all these things. You know what I'm saying? From the outside.
Yeah,
so I can see how this is kind of working for him in kind of a twisted way. I don't know. I kind of like that because there's something that feels real about this. And not that he would take advantage of that, but I mean, that's something that's interesting about the character.
And it's not even something he's intentionally trying to do. It's happening because of who he is and what he's got to deal with. And, it's funny. Superman's the one character that I really love a supporting cast. And I really love this character, but I always think in my mind, your life would be so much easier if you didn't have these supporting cast. If you literally you kept yourself separate, you hung out with the other heroes as needed, you spent your time in the Fortress of Solitude, and you just do your thing, and you don't try to have this other life. Part of me thinks his life would be so much easier on him if he just dealt with it that way. But I love the fact that he is dealing with this, that he does have these relationships, he does have these regular human problems that he's got to deal with, and he's got to juggle, and he's got to balance being Superman. It makes for great stories, and it's those moments where I'd like to be his pal, say, you know what, Soup? Maybe it'd be easier on you. Maybe there'll be a little less stress on you if you didn't have to deal with these regular problems. If Clark Kent just disappeared and you just became Superman.
By the way, I can't believe I'm actually saying this. I don't want the old suit back. I'm. You know what it was? And I'll tell you exactly the page in the panel where it hit me. They did that whole flashback to stuff like, from Superman's past, kind of, showing how his relationship was with the people and how people were questioning him because of his vigilante ways. And then you go to that panel, Metropolis was saved, and it was because of Superman. That iconic flying he's doing there, and you see this suit. And I gotta tell you, the Perez Scott team, what they did here with this, ooh, that is a pretty shot. It's iconic. That's poster worthy. I'm like, ooh, okay. I'm a believer. I like the suit. I'm like really to the point where this is the first time I can honestly say this, because if you had asked me even maybe last issue in this series, I would have said I'm warming up to the suit, and I've been saying that. I'm at the point right now where I'm looking at the suit and I'm like, you know what? I'm really into it now.
Amen. Yeah, it's this, see more of him in the suit and these action sequences when they're going through this whole flashback, kind of telling us the story of, his past, his present, and we find out that it's going to be this potential muckraking, I don't know if you want a journalistic story that's coming out that's going to show the positive and negatives of Superman. Seeing these sequences, this boom, 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 talking about Brainy fighting, talking about these flying Sky Raiders, then, Titano, all these different action sequences. Every one of those, I was like, man, that's a cool looking suit. That looks awesome. And he's even got the one pose where it's kind of the shadowy of him in the classic Superman pose, but the bright yellow back shield for the red S is visible. I'm like, yes.
You know what action shot I really enjoyed? The Professor Fleischer robots shot where Superman's flying along and he's using the heat vision on one of them and then punching the other one. I love the Superman pose in that. That's another like iconic Superman pose. I love when we see him flying and fighting in action, where like you kind of see that kind of effortless, like, because this is him moving. This is the way that he is at this point. This is a seasoned Superman doing that. I love this kind of stuff, seeing that, and I love the nod to the Fleischer cartoons and stuff like that. There's no way that wasn't a nod to that, and I just think that's true. But also now dealing with the reality of there's villains who are actually coming out and saying that they're doing things like doing this to prove that Superman can't save everybody. So while Superman is saving the day and a lot of the things that he's done were things that he prevented that were dangers that could have really hurt people. His presence alone is causing a lot of these things to happen. And I like how that would be something that emotionally would weigh on him, and it is. That responsibility is something that weighs on him. And I think that adds a humanity and an accessibility to Superman that, it's not it's the man, and this is something a good guy would be sitting there saying, but I'm saving lives and I'm doing these things. This is what I'm setting out to do. But then look what I'm causing and the responsibility that brings to me because of that. It's something, I don't know, I really like that theme in this book. And that's something that I think adds a new little wrinkle to Superman. We've seen that before with him, but I don't know why it feels fresh here in the way that it's being presented with the character. Because it feels like it's not like forced because of one event. It's his whole life that he has to deal with this.
Yeah, and it's, again, a modern, world, modern day stuff with the news and the media. You would have these people who would go with the expose on Superman, who would pursue that and say, hey, there's two sides to every story, and we got to tell the other side of the story. Now, is he doing it just for ratings? Is he doing it just to sensationalize? Does he have his own personal agenda? Possibly, maybe. We'll see down the line. But there are innocent people who are dying. It was great that he pulls up those two police officers who were killed by the Fire Beast last issue when their helicopter got eviscerated. We have innocent civilians who are in the wrong place at the wrong time. They're, the unlucky lotto people that, boom, guess what? It's Superman would have saved you, and he tried to save as many people as he can, but you can't get everybody. You can't save everybody. And I like the fact that we got somebody here who wants to bring this to the attention, who wants to expose it, and who wants to do a story on it. And it's, again, it had that modern media feel to it. And it's something that we're dealing with Superman sequences, but it's not even about Superman. It's about his universe around him, how they're looking at it, how the people are looking at him, how his friends like Lois and Perry are defending him when he's not there, saying, hey, you can't, this is muckraking. You can't just do that. That's wrong. You got your own agenda. This isn't journalism. Actually, come up with some real newsworthy stuff. And I love seeing just this whole thing play out.
I'm looking across Superman. There's one other thing on the costume I wanted to comment on. Kind of weird. I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump back to this. The black S on the back of the cape. How do you feel about that?
I don't have an issue with it. I'm kind of curious as to why we got the black S, not the yellow S. But who knows? It could be. I don't know. There could be a story behind why the black S is there as well. I saw it. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, and I just continue moving on. I don't have a positive yes. I don't have a negative no for it. It's just there.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things. I don't know. I'm fascinated by Superman right now, and the things that are the same, the things that are tweaks and changes. I don't know. I'm into it. I'm like, there's nothing right now I'm real critical about with this. It's more of I'm with you. I'm curious as to the story. Like I know the suit has a story. We haven't seen that yet. Like It's funny. I've been judging the suit based on I know we saw it from Krypton. And I don't know if maybe that is the story, just the fact that we saw Jor-El and the fact that these suits, come from Krypton and from the Heritage, and maybe that is the story, and I'm thinking there's more that's going to be told than there is. I don't know. I'd be happy if it's just that, to be honest with you, because, to me it's the nod to his heritage is what we're seeing here. The other question I have is, when in his life did the Kents die? Because they were dead as of Action Comics.
Yeah.
So how much of a influence did they have on him? Is kind of my question. Were they around for his years before Action Comics? When? I don't know. I would love to at some point in time. I think that would be a missed opportunity if we don't eventually see the story of
when they died, how they died, what happened,
and what their influence was on him.
Yeah. And who died first? Are they doing it where he's raised by Ma, or are they going to do back the old days where Ma died first and Pa was the one who kind of was the main person in his life?
Yeah, I don't know. There's something that's interesting about the whole thing to me, and I'm just kind of curious, which you should be at this point. The expose thing, I totally agree with you on. First of all, I do think he wouldn't be doing his job if he wasn't looking at something that would gain ratings and money. I think that's part of his job is to look for stories that would be front page stories, headline grabbers that people would want to read. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's an evil intention, though. That's kind of the interesting philosophical piece. They're protecting Superman because of their relationship with him, but I don't know that his storyline, that was the thing. I agree with you that I don't know that that was necessarily done as a negative piece. I don't know. That was kind of cool.
Go ahead. On one hand, I do think it's a negative thing. And I think that's something kind of like how when we talk Dark Knight, how that lieutenant's in for Gordon. I think this is going to be, we're going to see this we're going to see this guy again, and he is going to be either after Lois or maybe after Perry, or there's going to be some intrigue beyond just this one appearance. They're building up the Superman villain rogues gallery, but it's not a Superman rogue. This is more of a kind of a Clark Kent type of rogue.
Does it have to be, though? I guess to me it's interesting to have somebody in a journalistic bullpen who is just trying to get the stories that maybe the others aren't going after and questioning why aren't we? If we're trying to balance out the paper, why aren't we trying to show both sides? Why aren't we doing this? They're good questions. Like, there's something that somebody who's trying to make a name for themselves in a bullpen, which that's what I'm saying. That doesn't necessarily mean there's an evil intention there. You're a good journalist. You could be going for that. I don't know that the guy necessarily has to turn into this villain for him to remain a part of the cast. I'd like to see him be just as interesting that way. I don't know. I'm curious to see more of what is going on with Billy, because I think he's an interesting character. And he's asking the right questions, like the hard-hitting questions he's asking Lois, where Perry's, tell him to watch out. I don't know that he's wrong in asking that. I kind of would be too, outside looking in, I'm talking about. They're objective questions. We're a newspaper. Why are we avoiding talking about this?
Oh, definitely. And it's, again, as I say, it's with this guy, there's so much that they could do with him. And I don't think, he's introduced just to get rid of. I think we're going to get more stories out of him. And sure. I'm loving the fact that we're having a conversation about somebody who's in the Daily Planet bullpen, not just talking about Superman, Lois, or Perry. We're actually focused on somebody else. I think that's, for me, is something cool that the reboot's doing with the Superman story, that we have other people associated, involved, that's actually drawing our attention and has us thinking.
Well, because it's how these people impact how Superman impacts their world, I should say, and in reverse, how they then impact Superman's life. So I don't know. I don't think necessarily everyone needs to turn into a super villain. Right. Or even a villain that you have to be against the person. Like, I don't know that Clark would necessarily feel the guy was wrong for asking that, because Clark's asking those questions of himself, as Superman I'm talking about. That's what I found that was interesting. The questions this guy is asking are things that Clark is asking. As Superman, we saw him asking those questions. Is he responsible for these big Kryptonian beasts? The ones that are at least saying Krypton. Who's backing them? What's their common connection? Those are really cool questions. I don't know. It's something that I really enjoyed about this. I love seeing him with his powers. That just because he's Superman doesn't mean that he's naturally going to be able to fly into everything and just be able to deal with it. There's a learning curve of, okay, this is a different villain, sending around this whirlwind. I've got to use all of my powers to try and find a way. You said it before, improvise, adapt, overcome. I have to be in the middle of the situation in order to see that. I like that. That's something about that aspect of Superman that, again, this is Superman, and he has to come up with ways to deal with things and can't save everybody. Those people that are frozen, they're not frozen on the outside, frozen into ice right down to their skeletons. So they're dead, right?
Well, part of me thinks they came back as long as they weren't destroyed. Because
Lois did.
Yeah, Daily Planet people came back. So I think once he took out the ice whirlwind, those people got saved. I would assume.
I agree with you, actually. Now that I'm thinking about that, the Daily Planet people, because I forgot that Lois actually got in that one panel where Clark was saying Lois, that she was frozen in that panel.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's something interesting about that whole thing.
Oh, definitely. It's kind of neat seeing him go through flip-flopping through the powers. I always like when we get to kind of see Soup not just rely on big punches or heat vision. It's we see him hop from trying to get control of the flight, then hops through with the X-ray vision, super peepers showing what he's got. And I like seeing just the balance of the balance of his powers.
Here's the question I have. So in this mode where they're possessed, they know that Superman's Clark Kent, right?
Yeah.
I guess my question is, the three of them are together. Heather sees this whole thing. Heather's part of this whole thing as well.
She's now one of them, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I hope the writing's not on the wall for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm hoping that she is saved and back. Be curious to see if she knows the secret, but keeps it.
See, yeah, for me, I'm thinking because it seems like the entity that is creating these are possessing a human. They're taking over the human,
Agreed.
and the human becomes a host shell, not actually changed into it. So I'd like to think that when he figures out a way to get rid of the alien entity, that maybe the human host shell will be left unaffected. So,
But what if it's not?
yeah, I don't know. I want to see him have relationships with other people, and I like this character. I think I think she'd be kind of neat. And on one hand, if they do it where she comes back to being human but remembers and keeps the secret, that'd be a cool story. They come back with a story where she comes back and she has no memory of it, that's a cool story. If they do something completely in between the two of them, I'll be happy with it. Just use what you got, continue on with the story, and let's see what happens. I think all of these characters, they're not just introduced for the story arc. These are going to be long-term reoccurring characters, and I want to see him in a relationship, but not have the relationship end with the person dying or some horrific thing. I want just a normal life progression that leads from Heather to maybe another person, then maybe to Lois, or Heather to Lois, or however his story is going to get played out. But I want to see where this goes.
Have you been reading the DC All Access, the DC Comics All Access in the back? Do you read those articles from the editor-in-chief and stuff like that? Like the most recent one from Bob Harris that was on the back of this issue?
I didn't read the one on the back of this issue, not yet.
Okay, because one of the things that they mention in there, we were talking about the Court of Owls when we were doing the Batman title, and I hadn't read it as of when we had done that issue on the show, but reading it now, it actually does reveal there, which one of our listeners revealed in the show forums, so that was the first time I saw this, but the assassin is not Owlman, the assassin's Talon.
Oh, okay.
But if you're reading the back of this, there's more than one Talon. The Court of Owls has Talon assassins, and the storyline might have impact, it's saying, in things like Nightwing, Batgirl, Birds of Prey, and even Red Hood and the Outlaws. So because of their relationship with Batman and Gotham in general, they're saying that it might, which is kind of cool. So Scott Snyder's storyline might impact those books in some way. I don't know.
Nice.
Yeah, it's I encourage people, if you haven't been reading those, to check them out, because they sometimes throw little interesting tidbits, teasers to keep you excited. And I always liked it when it was the DC Nation panel back there, the DC Nation article back there when it was there back in the day. And I'm glad to see they're still keeping that going. I was a big fan as a kid growing up of Stan's Soapbox, what was in there in Marvel. And this is a lot like what I liked about Stan's Soapbox. There's an interactivity with your fan base where you're making us feel a part of the universe, a part of the creative process, a part of everything that's going on, and just speaking to us directly, as people, as your audience base. These articles are something they need to keep doing. I think they're really important. I whether they keep the same person doing it or they rotate it like they've done in the past, I don't care. I like the interactivity and the connectivity to it, and it's something I think it needs to be in the book like this, so I think it's really cool that they do these. So I just wanted to make note of it just because I'm a fan of them, and encourage anybody, if you're not reading them, do yourself a favor and do it. They're worth it.
Yeah, and also speaking of the back of the book, those Ray sneak peeks, the sneak previews to the Ray miniseries, I like that. I'm digging the fact that we have a brand new Ray because we don't have the long-term old heroes coming forward. So we have a new Ray, and it's funny because all of the pretty much all of these new reboot haven't been starting off with the origin of the character. They're jumping right into the action. Here we have him jumping in the action, but as he's in the action, he is telling us his origin right from the get-go. And because I didn't see it with everybody else, this is a different look, and this is something, it's kind of a neat way to do it, a neat way to introduce the character. If they had done this for all of the other 52, I'd be like, come on, let's just get in the story. But because of content of the universe, and because of how they're actually telling the story, I'm liking this, and it's got me curious to see, okay, what's this guy like? Add to it, we got some great creative team of, Jimmy Palmiotti, Justin Gray, and Jamal Igle. This is a sell for me. Right here, just this little sneak preview has me hooked and wanting to pick up the Ray.
Yeah, that's first of all, it's a great idea to introduce it as a 6-issue mini. Hopefully it will drum up interest and people will give it a shot. I love these type of characters. I love the Ray. I liked the Ray in his solo series back in the day. I'm not going to pretend I read every issue of it. Budget-wise, I wasn't able to. But I read like the first year of the first Ray, not the first Ray series, but the Ray series when it was launched back in the day. And then, I loved the Freedom Fighters and both miniseries featuring the Ray, and then the main series that was short-lived. But again, Gray and Palmiotti as a writing team just keep hitting home runs for me. I will read anything they do with their name on it. They had me at that. And then you've got Jamal Igle's art, and he always brings something special to a book. I mean, I'm with you. That's a must-read.
Yeah.
And it's a mini, so that's the great part about it is you're in for 6 issues, an enjoyable ride. I'm glad to see more of these characters in the New 52. They're like, hey, let's launch some characters out. Let's see what people feel about them. And it's a different Ray. It's a great chance to be on the ground floor for a brand new character. And if they, and this could be a character who knows, maybe he'll be on the Justice League. Maybe he'll appear somewhere else. He'll be a supporting cast member for another book. Maybe, if he's popular enough, he'll warrant his own title or another mini. Some characters I like when they have like minis and then follow-up minis and stuff like that. I don't know. So I'm curious to see where this character's going to go. The preview has me wanting more, and that's all you can ask for with a preview.
Yeah.
I'm going to need something to wear in a very big truck.
Sure. Anything else?
I'll need some guys. Not these guys, because, well, they're kind of dead.
And our next chat is going to be about Voodoo number 3. Story by Ron Mars. Art by Sammy Basiri. Color by Jessica K-H, I was sounding it out. K-H-O-L-I-N-N-E. Cover by John Tyler Christopher. Letters Jared K. Fletcher. Assistant editor Darren Shan. Editors Brian Cunningham and Rex Ogle. Voodoo created by Jim Lee and Brandon. It's C-H-O-I. And I know I'm going to butcher it if I try sounding it out. Because, it's funny. I remember Voodoo from back in Wildcats and stuff like that. You get names for creators in your head where you butchered it in the past and you can't let it go. So that's why I'm just going to stop myself there because I remember back in the day reading Voodoo early on. And I don't know. This is a character who I do have a history with. I got to admit I didn't read every one of her appearances or all of her in Wildstorm, but I read the mini-series from her, which was terrific. I've read her in Wildcats in different runs. There was actually a James Robinson run and Alan Moore run of Wildcats, as well as I read some of the original run of Wildcats. So I've read Wildcats at various times, and I know Voodoo mainly from that book. So it's interesting to see her brought into the New 52 with this take on her and with what they're doing. And I kind of like this. I really like this alien who's here to kind of investigate the superheroes here, planning a possible invasion. She's walked into our world with one impression. This Green Lantern issue was critical for me because, first of all, it's great to see Ron Mars writing Kyle Rayner again, for a guest appearance in this. But it's also cool to see that this is a character who's making her go, I didn't see that coming, with the way he reacts to her. And so this issue was really important to me. I've really liked this book for the 3 issues. It's another one of those titles, though, I wasn't really sure on until we got about 3 issues in. Now I'm invested into what's going on with the character. And so this is a title I'm glad we waited to talk about because I feel a lot more comfortable. And really, this is a book that I'm really enjoying more and more. It's climbing up the ladder of interest for me. Where are you at on Voodoo?
Well, Voodoo is another one of those titles where I was like, what's this? I had no idea anything about Voodoo. When it first came out, I was like, what? And then I did a quick wiki look and saw, okay, there had been a character before, and I didn't really read up on what the character was before. I'm like, I'll see what happens, see what it's like. But it was a title that, when I first heard it, I'm like, do we really need this character? Is this, what is this going to be like? And I was kind of on the fence. I was like, and picked it up and read it. The first issue was kind of cool. I was like, okay, this is a little bit different than as issue 2 came out, issue 3 came out. I'm reading more. I'm getting more into who she is and what she's about, and I'm liking her take on Earth, on the hero universe, and it's definitely. Every issue it's pulling me in more. There's, it started with a spark and it's growing. It's definitely a solid book and enjoyable. And it's funny because just this whole opening sequence where she is using her, and she's been using her, female, form to get what she wants, and just kind of, because yes, we are very easy manipulated through a pretty, face and a nice body. So she's getting what she needs. She's using us the way she needs to use us. And I was laughing because just that, the old Big Willie, the driver here, I'm like, dude, man. Nice knowing you. Even before we see what happens to him, I was just like, oh, this isn't going to end well for this guy.
I love the reaction to the mud flap.
Yeah.
Like, I love that was something that came into play with her. I mean, everything was interesting, even right down to the putting the hand on her leg. Yeah. I can walk from here, and you just see the blood splatter. I mean, it's just so great. I want to compliment this is one of those books that I'm with, actually, your comments about the first issue. Like, I enjoyed the first issue. This is cool. But I was kind of in a place, I haven't read a lot of, I read Voodoo in the various runs that I've talked about, but this is a character where, like, I haven't read her in a long time. This is an interesting take from her. I believe she was in that Wildcats relaunch, but we only saw the one issue of that, from Worldstorm. So it's a character who I've, like, and then I was reading some of Wildcats when they did World's End. Mm-hmm. So, because I got back into Wildstorm with that, so, I know the character from there. This is a different take on the character, though. At the core, it's kind of like what's going on with Grifter. While these are characters who have been in the Wildstorm universe before, there's something very new, very ground floor about them in their presentation of seeing them start off in the DC universe from the get-go. This isn't them coming through some wormhole and it's a Wildstorm character there. They are being started from the ground up as now being part of the DC universe proper. Very different presentation from them. And I really like that. It's not to say that the Wildstorm universe that used to be couldn't still be a part of the 52 worlds. That's great. That's what the multiverse is for. I like this idea of having these characters here for this reason. This is working really well and doing it this way. The artwork from the Power Girl artist, which is really welcome because I really loved the look of that series. It was funny. There was one of those books when Amanda Connor left, with issue 12, and we got a new artist, and I'm like, wow, I don't, how am I going to feel about that? Really grew to enjoy the artwork in that book. Was thrilled to see that in the new 52 we were getting this artist again on a title, and it's Ron Mars. So it's the creative team that, like, for the first issue, I'm like, wow, I'm really enjoying this. I'm going to stick around because of the creative team. I know they're going to deliver for me, and I do feel that with issue 2 and 3, this has been a book, a steady climb up the stairs of interest in following this. I love the idea that when they go to that skinny service place, there are more aliens on the world, and they're infiltrating the same way. I didn't realize that the two girls on this left and right were also, like, a part of that, and then partway through, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, they're in on it too? That was so cool.
Yeah, I kind of guessed that they were all three of them were aliens from the same unit, but for me, that whole opening sequence that I loved was the one panel when he's telling the one lady to shut up. He flicks her in the head, and then the next panel you see her rubbing that area, kind of going, "Ow, that hurt." I love just that little attention to detail. 2 small panels, not a big part of it, but it was just something I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Was there a mistake on the next page? Where you see him, like he goes, "What did you learn?" And then he's bending over in that next one, and you see the girl saying, "The War Council should have sent one of us." Was that not meant to be a balloon on Voodoo? Because it seems to me that balloon belongs on one of the other 2 girls, and her reaction to them should have been her, like, looking back on them. Are you following me?
I see what you're saying, yeah.
It seems dialogue-wise. I'm not saying that's a big issue. You know, I mean, it's something I noticed when I read, because I read this book 3 times in preparation for this. And really, honestly, I was going to read it twice, but I really liked it so much that, like, by issue 3, I went back through and I reread 1 and 2, and then read issue 3. So my third read-through is actually all 3 issues, going back through again. And I've got to say, I'm following it through in that progression. This is a book that's really grown on me, and it reads really well when you start seeing, like, the build to this point where the character's at. So it's an interesting title, and it's one, I got to be honest with you, if we weren't doing the whole New 52 thing where you and I were grabbing all the books, I would have missed this one, and I would have been sad to not have a title like this in my pull list. Because I like new characters. We were fans of books like The Shield, you know, when they brought in some of those characters, and then I liked things like First Wave, and I'm a fan of seeing different characters set in the DC universe. I love the classics and all that, don't get me wrong, but I need characters like this. I like Voodoo right now. I'm enjoying Grifter. I'm enjoying things like Captain Atom. I know Captain Atom, I mean, he's part of the DC universe, but I'm saying these are characters who, before, I don't know that I would have picked up a Captain Atom book, but I'm really digging that book. You know, I mean, that's a very creative book. Voodoo's a book that falls in that wheelhouse where I wouldn't have probably picked up this book if I wasn't reading the whole line for the show, and I'm really glad that I did. You know, I mean, I think there's a number of titles that fall into that category, and I'm glad that a lot of companies are doing these 50% off and, you know, special deals if you're buying, like, we've had people talk about comic shops doing, like, you know, buy a certain number of titles and you get one free or something like that. And I'm hoping that's getting people to try titles like a Voodoo, you know, where they wouldn't have tried it otherwise, and given some of these characters a shot, because it's an interesting book. And I do think this is one where, you know, you need kind of like the first arc to get a real feel for it. But I don't know where you're at, but by issue 3, I'm getting invested in this character. Oh, yeah. This is cool. It's different.
Oh, yeah. I'm solid into this, and it was neat to see that it was neat to see that, you know, she's not alone in this, that there is some big overall conspiracy coming down, because during the initial stuff, you're not 100% certain exactly what's going on. This opened up some panels, this opened up some ideas and some concepts that maybe there's even more of them out there. Now, granted, when she leaves and she goes off on her own, you know, Skinny's telling her, hey, you know, you're going to be on your own now, but who knows really if there's not anybody else on this planet. So there's so much more about who she is, what she is. You know, we see that she's not pure alien, she's a hybrid, you know, so it's like, what exactly is the pure alien? What exactly is she? You know, does she even completely know what and who she is? I like seeing, you know, the fact that they're giving us all this stuff about her, but they're still leaving some mysteries for us. They're still leaving stuff for the future stories to play out. And a great Kyle Rayner appearance.
You know, I want to shout a couple other things too. I love when you learn about a character's powers or whatever. You talk about the hybrid nature. See, and I like the hybrid thing. I like the fact that her alien appearance, when we see it, is natural for her, and this Earth female appearance, the traditional Voodoo appearance that we're seeing from her, is natural for her. Both of those seem to be natural. But the shape-shifting, like when she shape-shifts into that police officer, I loved, first of all, great example in the colors where you see the 2 different color eyes. Mm-hmm. You know, in one, it's the left is the green and the right's her natural color. Then they're both green. Then it's the left natural and the right still green because, you know, she's shifting back. I love seeing that done at piecemeal. We see it gradually shift, the gradual change to skin tone and color. You actually see the different skin tones on her skin as Voodoo. You know, in her normal, traditional Earth female garb, you actually see different skin tones. So I thought great color work, great artistic detail there. That was something I enjoyed seeing the change. But also the reasoning, why doesn't she do that more often? It hurts. You know, we need to do it, and here's why, but you know, it's a painful thing when it happens. And totally agree with you on the Kyle Rayner appearance. He's terrific in this. Adds something to the character of Voodoo. We're seeing, you know, these guys are basically, this mechanic is trying to give her an opportunity to escape, to complete the mission, knowing that they can get away from Kyle. Like, you know, we'll be the decoy. Let's get him away. You do what you need to do. And really set it up so there'd be a reason for Kyle to choose to follow him instead. But I loved that Kyle's appearance wasn't all about fighting them, wasn't all about the Green Lantern coming in. I mentioned it earlier. It was about her knowing that, okay, wait a minute, the more I'm getting to know Earth people, it's not all the same. You know, it's not all these people that want to cut us up. This guy, he's really kind of given us a chance here. And I didn't expect that. I liked that distinction. There was something cool about it.
Oh, yeah, and just his style. I always like the fact that, Kyle just doesn't use a big hammer and punches things. He bursts through with that, souped up kind of pimped out, I don't even know how to describe the, bulldozer, but it's not even that. It was a little bit beyond that. And then when he binds up Voodoo, it's not just rope flying around. They're little kind of like fairies and pixies carrying the string that wraps around him. It was just, there's some cool stuff going on that is Kyle, and just some classic stuff that I was like, yeah, that's him having fun with it. That's the artist in him doing this. So we're seeing him, we're seeing his characterization, and that for me was a very Kyle moment that he would go, okay, put down the defenses, free her, say, okay, talk to me, tell me what's going on here. I'm not just going to, let's just not do the beat each other up. Let's figure out what's going on here. And I loved seeing that style and seeing that the personality that I enjoy about him.
Now, those two shapeshifters, they have a different appearance than she does, which I thought was interesting. The fact that her alien appearance and theirs was different. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah. Well, it could be something as simple as different breeds. Could be different, we don't all look the same, so maybe these aliens don't all look the same.
She's more reptilian, though, and there's claw-like feet. I mean, there's drastic differences. Not even she definitely has a much more reptilian look. They have what looks like 2 fingers and a thumb. Mm-hmm. There's 4 fingers, but 2 of them are attached together, like kind of webbed together almost. Whereas looking at her, she has 4 separate claws and a clawed thumb. There's distinct visual differences between. I'm looking at issue 1 and comparing as I'm going through. Drastic differences with her than them. So what is it? Are these being pulled from different races? Are they the same race? And is it the splicing that's going on that's doing this? I don't know. Are these races that are partnered up, that have a relationship, for the same purpose? A la allies, like different countries in our world ally together. I don't know. These are things that are interesting me about it. I'm like, okay, I want to know more. It was kind of cool than just seeing, we talk about the importance of a supporting cast. This adding on to like this space, of the DC universe. I'm a fan of books like, we were fans of Rebels when it was out. I'm a fan of exploring the fact that there are more alien races in the DC universe than we realize, and this was a great way to bring a different character in. You wouldn't have gotten this if we brought her through in a wormhole, because her world wouldn't be here. This is much more interesting because she's actually from our universe.
Oh, yeah, and the fact that we have, and what you're saying, how with this, the universe is so vast that there's going to be these races that, even the Green Lantern doesn't know about. And I like seeing that mystery behind who the race is, who she is. And, again, it's another thing that down the pipeline, down the ways, we'll learn about her planet and we'll see what's going on with her. Right now, we're getting the feel of who she is, and she's on the mission for, intel for the big invasion that's coming. So will the invasion happen? Will she still remain loyal to their people, or will she realize that Earth isn't a bad people? It's not a bad place, and there are good people here, and we deserve to live. It's what is going to happen? Is she going to be? Is she a villain? Is she going to be a hero? Is she going to be that middle ground that you don't know exactly? Because she's killed federal agents. She's killed the quote-unquote good guys. So that, and she's the front runner for an invasion. So that's the key components for a villain. But she's not, is she really? Is she an evil person? That's something that's going to explore and going to come out in the title. And that's something that I'm curious about and I want to read more about.
Ladies, is this the best you can do? I like that there was a certain fun factor to Kyle's appearance, because this is a book that, it's got a nice different variation of emotion throughout each of the issues. As far as it's not a one-trick pony as far as the title goes. It'll take you through the whole gambit. And I like that. I mean, there's something interesting about the whole book. Like even Gallows humor-wise, when she took out the truck driver in the beginning. I was like, all right.
Well, just that ending when they escape through the wormhole. You are not disappearing into that wormhole. This is not happening. Okay, maybe it is just a little. Or a lot as they completely get away. That, little funny moments, and makes me wonder, are we going to see Kyle in this again? Again, is he just in for this issue, or is he going to play out? Is he going to remember her and look for her and try to figure out what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd definitely love to see Kyle make an appearance again in this book. I thought his appearance was very welcome in the whole thing. So I don't know. Now, there's other aliens that are hunting Voodoo. Mm-hmm. I wonder, what doesn't she know is part of my question. It's that's the part that really has me interested. She's going to, this plan that the guy said, don't fail the cause. What happens if she doesn't necessarily still believe in the cause as time goes on? What if she gets to know people and gets to know humans and her has a different take on it? Then that turns her supporting cast in a whole different twist. And are there going to be other aliens there who might help open up her mind? Like maybe aliens who have infiltrated who kind of don't want to go back. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, and I'm kind of wondering if that guy, on one hand, when I first read it, I was thinking, okay, this is a natural adversary from their planet, who's either, maybe they're thinking of doing another invasion. I was kind of thinking maybe it's like USA and China. Each one have the same idea, each one have the same end goal, who's going to get there first, who's going to take over Earth first. But then just started thinking about it. What if this is, the first wave that came through? And this was the first guy who, was supposed to do what Voodoo's doing, and he kind of went, rogue, went renegade, and one of the reasons Voodoo's there is because this guy is doing, didn't, complete the mission. There's so many what ifs. It could be this, it could be that. And again, it's the mystery of the unknown is making it an interesting story.
It's funny. Did you like V, either version of V, the newer one or the old one?
Oh, yeah.
This reminds me of the potential for a lot of storytelling like that, where, it's as they get to know the Earth, there's some potential. Because, if I was an alien visiting our planet, I'd want to stay. A lot of times I get accused of being very alien. But, I would take them to, these people, if they came to Earth, first thing I'd do is take them to Disney. Take them to Disney World and say, Earth can be fun. But I don't know. There's something about this. There's a potential for this book to show what happens when somebody, we don't know how many sleeper agents. I shouldn't call them sleeper agents because they're clearly awake. But I don't know how many of these
activated.
Yeah, I don't know how many of these aliens there are who have infiltrated. It'll be fun to see if they all do feel the same way. It's a cool book. It's funny. What I saw in the end of the first issue, I didn't expect it to go in this direction. I really like the direction it's developing in. I can understand why situations have antagonized her further, yet the situation with Kyle kind of showed us that there's a spark of, okay, there's a possibility for this girl to be reached, which I didn't see in the first two issues. You know what I mean? The first two issues, it was clearly her, on the run, kind of being a fugitive. Where I liked the different distinction.
Yeah, she was a clear-cut villain in those first two issues. As I said, killed a federal agent. She was, didn't have a difficulty killing Willie. So in the initial appearance, but it is that interaction with Kyle where she's starting to look, saying, hey, what's going on here? And, you kind of make her think she's going to open up her eyes a little bit. Her human exposure probably wasn't the greatest, considering where she was at and what she was doing. And, so now I'm hoping maybe as she's going down the road, maybe she'll run into people like the Kents, honest, regular, everyday good people. Maybe not every human she's going to be exposed to is going to be scummy.
You know what, though? There was some sympathy I had from her, too, even when she dealt with our law enforcement. Remember, she was a telepath. So she was reading in their minds that they were, two of them were ready to chop her up. Yeah. or to turn her into people who would dissect her to find out more information. So seeing that that's what they would do to somebody who's different, to a race that's different, that type of thing is, first of all, it's a very real reaction to what humanity is capable of. And I loved her distinction saying, oh, wait a minute, go after him. Because it is something where that's not the whole story. That's not all that people are. But are there people that are like that would do something like that? Absolutely. So we're dealing with real human social issues and social problems in there. God, I would hope that if an alien came down to our planet, not in the case of they're doing an invasion, obviously, but I'm saying if an alien came to our planet, that we as a people might be able to find a way to start dialogues and stuff like that and maybe trade technology, and you would hope that it would be a better world. But I think what she was facing is more the reality of the situation. We'd chop her up and make sure nobody knew.
That'd be government secrets and just dissection, and what can we learn from their dead body, and what can we reverse engineer their tech, and just there's people who probably would be very supportive and cooperative. I'd guess like the scientific community would be a little bit more open and a little bit more friendly. But when you get the government, when you get the military, where you get the various law enforcement, they're gonna lean towards that fight or flight, the strike first before we get hit mentality, and that's just their nature. That's just some of the best some of the qualities that make for the best soldiers, that make for the best police officers, and is that okay? I got to react. Danger assessed, fire, no hesitation, because when you're on the field of battle, you hesitate, you can get killed, or your people can get killed. So it's understandable that what she's seeing, what she's dealing with the different people, and it's kind of good to see her get out now.
Here's the funny part, though. I don't know that our scientific community... wait, I should clarify. First of all, I will go on the other end and say I think there's law enforcement people that would look for justice and, would give her an open mind because, they're real, true... They went into law enforcement for the purpose of honest, true justice. Did you do something wrong? That type of thing. In her case, obviously, the killing of people puts her in a different category. Yeah. But you know what I mean as far as like when an alien first came to Earth, what I'm talking about. But I think on the scientific community and the chance to dissect and study an alien, do we consider them human? And what would we do because of that? This is the reason why we have issues when people with as far as experimentation on even animals. What are the ethics? I don't know. I think with aliens, you would enter into very much the same ethics you would enter into with animal experimentation and human experimentation.
Yeah, there's going to be on each side, there's going to be, differences of opinions, but I don't know. For some reason, I would say the scientific community, their first reaction wouldn't be dissection. Their first reaction is, what can we get through dialogue? It's all part of the learning experience. And once they get to the point where, okay, we've learned all we can from talking to her, now let's dissect her. I don't think their first go-to reaction would be to kill it.
What if there's more than one, Jim?
More than one alien?
Uh-huh. What if there's what if there's like 20 of them?
Yeah, then you do the eeny, meeny, miny, mo, this one's got to go. Okay, dissect that one, let's start negotiating with that one.
See what I'm saying? I mean, we're remember, we're dealing with a situation right now, scenario we just saw. There were 4 of them there. I don't know that all of them would have survived.
Probably not. Yeah, there definitely would have been at least 1 or 2 of them who would have been on the chopping block, especially once they learned that there's different races and different species, and find out who the leader is, separate them from the others. The others were kind of flunky, so guess what? They're expendable.
I think we would have had Voodoo McNuggets. The honest reality is, though, taking the joking out of it, I do think that that's something that would be a real interesting consideration. I'm not talking about the ethics of it, because ethically, you get into a whole bunch of problems with it. I'm of the camp that I'm not a hypocrite. I understand why we do experimentation on animals, so I'm not going to be hypocritical about that. I'm not going to pretend. But if it were me in the lab, would I be able to, which camp would I lie more into? I'd have to say I probably would be one of those people that you'd have a scientist who would be lecturing me about the fact that you use these products, you use these things too, you benefit from all these things, but I would be the one saying, you can't do that to an animal. That's kind of my take on things. There's people who run, when you start in that category, you start people on the far left of this, the far right of this, and all the way across the spectrum in the middle. It's like a big rainbow. So that's what's kind of fun about this book when you start getting deep about it. It's a really cool, and I didn't expect this book to go in this direction. It becomes a real cool commentary on what would happen if an alien tried to infiltrate our world, or bunches of aliens infiltrated our world, and they had to deal with telepathy, visuals, trying to blend in working in the environments, in all different avenues of life. Imagine being a mechanic and dealing with the clientele.
Oh, God.
Would you save us? don't know. I worked for years in retail selling suits, and that I didn't know what was on people's minds. But if I was an alien, I don't know that I would save us. Depending on the day at work.
Retail environment, man, you see just the worst of people sometimes. Right. And all my years in banking, I was physically threatened over a 25-cent service fee. The guy was actually wanted to beat me up because his account was charged 25 cents.
And Jim, I want to apologize for that again. I realized I was out of line. It was only a quarter. And we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, I know. Now you guys learned how Norge and I met.
No, really, it amazes me over a quarter. We had the same thing when I was working. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail your conversation point. But I had the same thing when I was selling suits. You'd have people. We had a guy who came in on a birthday. He put on this hat, and he had been drinking. It was his birthday. The wife brought him in. Now, why on earth you would bring a guy who's that loaded into shop at a clothing store, I have no idea. He wanted to buy this ridiculous hat, and we were an outlet store. So and when I say outlet store, we were the place that they stored things that they couldn't sell that probably should have been given away a decade before that we still had. So this was a great example. This is one of those hats that was up there. The guy put it on. He saw it in the mirror. He, loved the goofy look that he had and all that stuff. He put it on the counter, and the wife's like, she had the money. She's like, I am not paying for that. Well, needless to say, this guy was convinced that he wanted it, and he was walking out with it. So we've got my manager telling him, you can't leave with that. She's not paying for that. And him telling her it's either you pay for that or he's got to give the hat back. He's threatening to beat up my manager. I'm being told to go in the back and call the police. This is over a hat. A hat, Jim, again, I'm telling you, probably should have been given away years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's similar to your 25-cent story. So now imagine you're an alien, and this is your exposure to our world. You're not seeing the complete picture. You're not seeing that guy when he's not inebriated. You know what I mean? Is that who that guy was that was in our store? I have no clue what that guy's like outside of there. He could have been just, happy with his birthday, got way too, that was his night of weakness or whatever. Could be the nicest guy on the planet. I have no clue. But that was my exposure to that guy. Yep. It's one of those things. And in a retail environment, you're only going to see people in that type of environment, not their whole story. That becomes interesting, commentary, especially when you see then a Kyle Rayner that threw her for a loop over there. I don't know. I loved this book. It was, I did not see myself. I saw this being an interesting little story following this alien villain that came in. I don't know that I view her as a villain. I view her as a gray area.
It's a tough call for me because, as I said, she's killed the federal agent, and she's killed police, and she's got no problems with killing humans, but I kind of understand, and I don't want to say I justify it, but it is a different, she is that different type of hero, villain, gray. She is voodoo. She is her own thing. It's, you can't say one or the other, and it's something that it's going to be curious to see as it plays out.
Here, let me put it to you a different way. You've got a soldier who's invading another enemy country, and they're deep undercover, and their cover's about to be blown. They kill somebody to keep it quiet. Are they a villain?
No, of course not, because it's my country, invading that thing. So that's why it's hard to say, is she good or bad? It's a tough thing. I don't think she enjoyed the kill, so that means it's not an evil thing. It's a necessity thing. Now with Big Willie, I'm willing to bet she enjoyed that kill.
Yeah,
and that was something. And it was funny because you commented on it when she saw the mud flaps with the the girly girl on the mud flaps, and you just that look of disgust on her face, like, really, you got to do this, And so she probably enjoyed killing him, and but I'm willing to bet she probably didn't do it, make it slow and painful. It was just probably a bam, done.
Well, at this point, her impression of us has been based on the fact that multiple people now, she's read their minds and they were going to chop her up.
Yeah.
So your relationship, we're now the big people that are stepping on ants, and she's an ant.
Yeah.
So how do this is like stepping on an ant to her now. You know, it's the reverse psychology. You know, she's looking at us, fine, if this is the way you're going to treat me, then guess what? You're all expendable.
Well, and plus you figure she was in, the gentleman's club for the beginning parts of this, and if you're a telepath in the gentleman's club reading those guys' minds, you're probably not getting the most positive opinions of the male human.
Are you saying that not everyone in a gentleman's club is a gentleman?
I'm saying that, when you go there, you're going for fun. You're thinking one thing and one thing only while you're there. You're not thinking about, I really got to make sure I write that check to those charities, and I got my work with the homeless this weekend. You're focused on one thing and one thing only.
Yeah, this is a good book because I can tell I'm not saying that I agree with her. That's why I say it's a gray area. I'm certainly not patting her on the back and going, "Wow, you're a hero." There's an interesting gray area here, and I see there's a lot of potential for her being definitely a villain. I see the potential for her remaining a gray area. I see the potential for her getting to know people and realizing there's more to us than meets the eye. So I don't know. It's a cool book so far, and I didn't expect myself to be this into this book 3 issues in. I enjoyed issue 1. It was enjoyable. Issue 2, issue 3 was the one where it like kind of all came together for me. I'm like, wow. Potentially this book could get very, very interesting as it goes on. I hope the build continues. I hope it continues this way for me, because what I'm seeing as potential possibilities for the title could be extremely interesting and cool.
Yeah, definitely issue 3 was the point where I really started thinking off the page and started thinking off world and thinking where this may go and seeing the depth of the character and the depth of where this story can go. So yeah, this was a turning point.
Do you worry about titles like this because like to me, rereading issue 1 when I read 1, 2, and 3 together, issue 1 felt very much like a well-crafted prologue. But the problem with a prologue is you haven't gotten into the meat and potatoes yet of the series. And, for me, reading it again, I'm like, wow, this is really good. I mean, it'll read very well in a trade. The arc will read very well together. I'm not saying you should wait for a trade on this book. I don't mean it that way. I get worried, though, that a book like this will get lost in the shuffle because it's different. It's a lesser known character. I'm hoping something like this, with the fact that the New 52 was a launch, that people like picked up the first few issues because they were getting a deal somewhere. Maybe they did the DCB service thing, and this has an attach rate. Because I do think this is a book that would appeal to somebody looking for something a little out of the ordinary.
Oh, definitely. And I do worry about this title and titles like this because of the unknown factor of who Voodoo is and what's going on with the story. It's the thing where I think someone would have picked up the first issue and it didn't lock me in. Well, the first issue was the beginning parts of it. It's 2, 3 is where it really goes. And if you gave only the first issue a try and didn't go with 2, I would highly recommend, give 2 and 3 a try. Just read it through, see what you're thinking about it. Definitely with the 52, with this whole reboot, I've been giving myself that first story arc. I want to have that full first story arc before I really make any, solid assessments as yay or nay. And so far with all of them, usually by issue 3, I'm locked into a pretty solid opinion of it. But I'm like, hey, let's see where this goes.
Yeah, I said I wanted to talk about this book this week because issue 3 is really the one that hit me. I'm kind of like, well, okay, I've really got something I want to say about this title now. Whereas I wasn't there yet. That's been kind of the fun thing about the way we've been exploring the New 52, has been kind of just gradually going along saying, okay, what books do we want to talk about this week? And as we've been looking through the list of ones we haven't talked about, recent issue releases that have stood out for us as ones like, hey, this would be a fun issue to talk about. There's a reason. And that's what we've been doing for people listening. We've been doing kind of a little off the air summit as far as looking at titles and just randomly picking 4 titles for the week that we want to talk about. So it's been really the issues that have been deciding for us what titles to discuss versus it being kind of a forced, okay, we haven't talked about, we have to talk about this book now. I like the way we've been picking books because I've been enjoying the conversations greatly, because nothing's been forced. We haven't hit that title yet. I don't know if it's the same for you as it is for me. I haven't hit a title yet where I felt like, oh, okay, we got to finally get to doing this segment for this book. I haven't had that experience with the show, with these yet.
No, not with so far, and I'm glad we're not having that issue and having that problem.
Yeah. So Voodoo, it's a cool read if you haven't checked it out.
He did just thank me, right?
Indeed, he did, sir.
Weird.
Our next issue will be Justice League Dark, number 3. Writer is Peter Milligan. Art by Mikhail Janin. Colorist Ulysses Areola. Letterer Rob Lay. Cover by Ryan Sook. And editor Rex Ogle.
This, for me, was another one of those titles. You know what? This to me, is a spiritual successor to Shadow Pact. I'm glad it has the Justice League title to it as well. Obviously, with the Justice League, link with the fact that, this was something that in the first issue, the Batman was in it and stuff like that. I liked how that all played out. And Zatanna being on the team. But this has everything that I liked about Shadow Pact. I was a big fan of that series. It's great to see something like this back in the DC universe again. I'm hoping the Justice League title to it gets it some notice because I love Peter Milligan. This has got the right character set of just quirky people from the Changing Man to Dead Man to Constantine, Zatanna, and Enchant. Who am I?
Enchantress.
Enchantress, right. Okay, I was right on that one. And I actually like that she's separated from her host and Dawn. We got Dawn as well, Dawn Granger, Dove, in this series. So I don't know. It's an interesting team, and I'm at least I think she's part of this series. I don't know if she left Dead Man for good or not.
I'm thinking she's the supporting character to him. I don't think she's going to be a regular part of the team.
I thought she was billed as being part of the team, though, in the beginning. I think she is going to be a part of the team. I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening with it.
Yeah. This is a book that, again, because it's funny, we just talked about Voodoo, where I was like, when they first announced it, I didn't know if I really thought it was a necessary book. And same thing with this one when I first heard about the announcement and heard what they're going to be doing. And then as I started, seeing who was going to be on the team, I'm like, okay, this could be interesting. And you mentioned how it's like a spiritual successor of Shadow Pact. I was like, I kind of like that. So I like that there is a mystic side to it and there's a mystic thing. So I went into this with very mixed emotions, mixed feelings. And again, another one by the third issue that I'm getting the groove of the team. I'm understanding where they're going. And I'm not at the point right now where I'm thinking off page and thinking what this is going to go to. But I'm not sitting here going, I really don't want to talk about this. It's a book where I enjoyed reading it stage. And I'm curious for the next one and curious to see how this plays out and see how this team comes together. But I'm not as hoorah fired up and passionate as I was about the Justice League or Superman. It's still something that's growing and building, but every issue has me thinking more about this team, has me thinking more about what could be. And it's something that's kind of neat, just the growth process. And I think part of mine is I don't have a really solid foundation with these characters. I know who they are, most of them, but I don't have a core understanding of them.
See, you and I are in completely different places. And I mean, that's not a knock on you. Everything you said, I'm totally understanding. Here's the characters that really have me as a focus on this series, and one of the reasons why this series is a must-read for me. It was funny. Issue 1, I was reading tentatively because I'm like, okay, is this going to be Shadow Pact? What's it going to be like? I say spiritual section of Shadow Pact. I don't want to make it seem like I'm thinking this is Shadow Pact or anything like that. I actually like that it's not. It's a supernatural team that's been put together, but because there's very different characters. I loved Madame Xanadu's series from Vertigo recently, so I'm invested in her. I'm reading Hellblazer right now and digging it. John Constantine's terrific in this. Dead Man from Brightest Day, super into him. I'm less familiar with Shade the Changing Man, but liked him from Flashpoint, so he's not one of my hook pieces in this one, and Mind Warp, not so sure about him. I'm looking at what looks like the tentative team lineup, and it looks like Dove is not a part of the tentative team lineup. I'm with you, probably a supporting cast. Enchantress, liked her in Shadow Pact. Curious to see what they're doing with her here. Zatanna, I like Zatanna's outfit right now. I hope they kind of stay with this kind of look for her because it kind of fits the dark universe. This is somebody it's more today. I have no problem with if she has still a stage outfit like we're used to seeing, but this is more functional street clothes for what she's doing. We see her a lot in the covers appearing like this, especially with Constantine doing the street clothes thing and stuff like that. I don't know. There's something I'm really digging about this book. These are characters who I am reading. I liked Zatanna's solo series a great deal, and it's one of the books that I regret we didn't talk enough about when it was out. And it's one of the things I'm liking about with the New 52, that we're jumping around a bit more and hitting more of the universe. And it's something, after we're done covering all the New 52 books, I'm anxious to kind of go back around again and start hitting things because of books like this, characters like this. I am very invested in this book with these characters. I love the supernatural feel of it. The artwork on this book, I am not familiar with this Mikkel Janin at all, or the colorists, and I've probably seen them before. I apologize. I am very into them from this title. I think this is a very good-looking book, and it's artwork, and I think it's because I'm not familiar with the art. I feel like I should know it from somewhere, but it's making me notice here. and I'm a Milligan fan, and he's delivered for me in the past. He's delivering for me with this book. I read 1 and 2. I read issue 1 of Justice League Dark, and I got to admit, it was one of those, because of the amount of titles I've been reading with the New 52, it waited a little bit. It was closer to the release of issue 2, so I read 1 and 2 very close together, reread them again immediately. When issue 3 came out, I'm going to be honest with you, it was on my short stack of reads that week. It had to have been in my first 5 that week. This book has gotten me that interested and intrigued and charged. So it's fun to kind of talk about the fact that we're in different places about this book for different reasons. And I do think you're talking about characters. I think it's my familiarity with the writer and the characters that is, I think, investing me in this title, because I am reading things like Hellblazer and stuff like that, and I feel right at home with this book. This is, to me, I'm digging this. I love the exploration of Deadman and what he's dealing with in this. And I think because I'm enjoying him so much in the DC Universe Presents as well, is kind of grabbing me for this. This stuff with June and her fear. Like, imagine being, we see this with the Demon, and, being in this, like, kind of, I don't want to say symbiotic relationship, but really it's like kind of like the Hulk relationship. That's what goes on with some of these characters. They're themselves one time, they're the other person the other time. Each kind of influences the other, but, it's Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation. Yeah. Then you're separated, and look at what the other side is. Would you want to be chased and connected with that? She's ready, like, if she's going to get me, end my life. Yeah, that's where and I'm sitting here like, I don't know if I was in that situation after having been bonded with that person. Would you want to go back to that? Could you go back to that? I like that exploration. There's something neat about this book. So, yeah, I'm definitely in the camp that this book is something that's right in my wheelhouse right now. And I like that it's different. Again, another title that, very similar to what we were talking about with Voodoo a little while ago. There's something about this title that's a little bit different, and it's not in something else's wheelhouse. And I was glad to see this is spinning out of Flashpoint. The Mind Warp is the character from Flashpoint who's coming in. They're taking Shade from, Secret 7, kind of bringing him. I know Shade the Changing Man was around before that, please, and don't get me wrong. But Peter Milligan actually wrote Shade the Changing Man back then. So, and it's a character, I got to admit, I didn't read the Peter Milligan run of the character. I didn't have the budget at the time, too, but I heard nothing but good things. So I was excited, based on the buzz from Shade the Changing Man, to see Peter Milligan writing him. So there was so much to like about this title, and it's really paying off for me. But I got to say, this is an art team, again, very different. There's a lot of visual sequences involving magic that I'm a fan of, like art teams that incorporate special effects, and it makes the book look a little different. There's a magical feel to this title that I'm enjoying the visual experience as well as the dialogue in this title, and it's really invested me. So, and I will say it's another one it's reading those 2 issues back to back and then jumping to issue 3. By issue 3, this is rising way up my stack in this title, and they could have put not because it's a Justice League title. It's really it's more of the successor to Shadow Pack. I missed having this type of title in my library, and this is a great character set. I love that, like Madame Xanadu. Is she a hero or a villain, or what's her deal? I love that I'm like with all these guys, I don't feel like everyone's clean, Like, I don't know who to trust on this team, and there's something interesting about that in the Magic universe, because I think that's very common like you and I are both fans of shows like Buffy and Angel, and it was very common that you didn't know from time to time who was on what side.
Yeah.
Alliances were very fragile. And there's something about that this kind of fits into that category as well, and that's something that I'm intrigued by. I like that it's not clean. You know, it's a dirty book. I like that. You know, it's that kind of relationship in there's a little different as well. It feels very real world.
Oh, big time, big time. And it's funny because whenever we throw out the term real world and we're talking about supernatural magic, you'd think they don't go hand in hand, but the creative team here is doing a really great job of keeping it grounded in reality, keeping it, believable and not just so far-fetched. And, talking about just art sequences, one of the things I did notice in this book was a lot of the background characters, the people who aren't really even associated with the title, they're just, the white noise in the background. We have a good diversity of different types and different styles of people. That opening sequence when the ambulance is there and just look at the different, you have all the different races, sexes, body types represented in there. And I thought that was something that I liked seeing that. Again, it's a realistic thing. When you walk down the street, it's not all going to be one thing. There's going to be a mismatch. There's going to be multiple different people. It's kind of a melting pot of visual stimulation. I like seeing that in this title, and it's something I really did notice with this throughout the different issues, that the creative team is going out of their way to kind of give us a nice blending. And it's just background stuff, but it's still. That little background, that little attention to detail is something that I appreciate.
That ritual segment in the motel was something that I really dug because it's a very personal situation between the two of them. Because even reference it's tantric magic and union of bliss with only the tips of fingers are touching. I love that afterwards they needed to do this in order to get the information about the enchantress and all that. But I love that afterwards. Zatanna's like covering up like there was like a personal violation to all that, and that would be. I loved the visual storytelling sequence. How she was mad that he was able to use her magic because of previous encounters between the two of them, and I didn't take it to be just the fact that there was some kind of relationship between the two of them. I also took it like situations like that tantric magic where the two of them have had to interact like that. He's picked up tricks from all that because that's what Constantine does. He picks up tricks along the way, and he's not the nicest of fellas. That's is one of the things I like about him in the DC universe right now. He adds a whole lot of flavor, and he's cool. And I do encourage anybody, if you're not reading Hellblazer and you're digging this book, you need to pick up Hellblazer. It's a great title. You'll feel like you're reading the same guy because he is the same guy from right there. I like the kind of Vertigo-y crossover with this. He fits very well in the DC universe, and there's something fresh about it without it having to go the full, it's a Vertigo, more mature title. You can put him in here and keep it, in the DC wheelhouse. But yet there's something interesting about having him there. And I really liked that. I liked Zatanna's reaction to the whole thing afterwards, though. That's a kind of magic when you have to dress that way in order to interact. There's going to be afterwards kind of that
uncomfortableness.
Yeah, I loved the way that was done. And this is an example of something where, what is it you're liking about this book? What's making it feel so different? It's those sequences where I'm like, oh, it makes me feel like I'm there, and a part of that. And it's that's something that I get into titles that have atmosphere and mood and something different. It's cool.
Now, Mike, one of the things I was wondering is with Deadman and June. Mm-hmm. Just, how she can see him, how he has some physical presence. Is it just because she is so magically embodied, or can he go solid?
I was taking it that it was due to her relationship with the Enchantress that she could see him. and I was taking that was the case. I'm wondering if a lot of these magic characters are going to be able to see him because of their powers, if you follow me.
Oh, definitely.
Like, if you take a look at the team lineup, I can assume that a Constantine would have a way to be able to interact with a dead man. Xanadu would be able to. Shade the Changing Man, would his vest allow him to be able to contact him? Well, we see him that he's already tracking down Boston Brand, so yes, of course. Zatanna, I'm imagining her magic she'd be able to. Mind Warp. Enchantress. So the team lineup, you got some characters who could see him, I'm guessing, and I'm guessing maybe for each character it wouldn't be the same way. Like, the interactions he's having here with June might be because of that sensitivity. Because look what's happening during their interactions there. There is a magic tracking her down because of the relationship and the connection with Enchantress. I'm guessing that they haven't been totally divorced. There is still interplay.
There's still a piece of her in her, yeah.
And maybe what's Enchantress, that horrible stuff that Enchantress is going through, is due to the fact that she doesn't have June there. We're seeing that element of, I don't know. It's to me, that's how I took it. I don't know that I'm right, but that's the way I'm taking it. How are you seeing it?
Well, I was kind of leaning towards the whole magic, the mystic side of what June, the connection and just who she had dealt with, just why he's able to have more of an interaction with her. Which, in a way makes me wonder then about Dawn, because Dawn can interact with him but can't physically contact, can't physically have anything. So those two have that limitation, but June here is able to physically touch and physically feel him, and it's something that I kind of like that, and it was something I'm hoping they further explore and just don't pass over.
I loved the emotion in June that was shown in the artwork. Everything from calm, comforting, to surprise and shock, to downright out-and-out horror, to like frantic terror. She goes through a whole gamble of stuff, and that really shows in a sequence where you're seeing a lot of beautiful visual magical effects that are lining the panels. And I'm a fan of interesting panel work that's being done. This type of panel work wouldn't fit in every book. It fits in this magic book. And that's something where we've talked about this in many of the episodes. One of the things I'm liking about the New 52 is that there's not a cookie cutter DC style of, all these books have to look like this or have this whole thing going on. It is more of the creative team crafting a style for the book that matches the material that's presented inside the characters. And that's something in this book really, by this issue, this is where I really just got invested into, wow, this is cool. Shade the Changing Man, I don't know a whole lot about other than what you know. We read him in the same place. I do know what I've heard about the character in his series. A lot of great buzz about Peter Milligan's stuff. Never got an opportunity to read the Ditko stuff. I did order that Ditko Shade Omnibus, but that's one of those, when am I going to be? It's one of those that's going to go on the stack. I'm going to say that I should clarify, though, and jump back and say this title is going to bump that up the stack because I want to know more about Shade the Changing Man. So it's funny how, I'm interested in the guy a lot more now, even than I liked him in the Flashpoint, but I'm more invested in him now in this book where we see him, the bit with his girlfriend in the previous two issues, that Kathy that he was recreating and doing all that crazy stuff with. I'm sitting here, I'm like, whoa, because I didn't, you're reading the first issue and you're like, okay, this is his girlfriend who has a tough relationship with this magic dude. Then we realize that, she really is more Gumby than Wonder Woman. I mean, whoa. And so how balanced is this fella?
I think that's a good comment on everybody on this team. There's a little imbalance. There's a little bit quirkiness to them, and it's that difference, and it's that that the fact that none of these characters, well, almost none of them, I'd say Zatanna, but none of these characters really have a clear-cut hero persona. They all are a little bit dirty. They all a little bit, on the darker side of things, and just it's not clean cut. There's a touch of gray there, and I think that's something that I do still have to get my fingers around, and I still have that hesitation jumping into it because I am such a dun-da-da guy where I like those clean-cut heroes, but I really can't appreciate what I'm seeing. And these non-traditional panels, with going from that heavy magic accent around it, then to the more traditional panels when he can't, when he's done trying to communicate with Boston Brand, I'd like seeing that flow through, and boom, we go back to quote-unquote traditional. But even then later, when we see Boston doing his traveling, his trapeze act and his acrobatic act to save June, again, it goes back to a non-traditional layout and a non-traditional flow, which has me going, dang, this is cool.
It is funny in a title like this where there are certain characters that I do feel are trying to be heroes. Like Constantine, trying to correct wrongs along the way. Although he does it in the Constantine way. Xanadu, really, for me, I'm very leery. Like, she's one of those I'm sleeping with one eye open kind of people. I'm keeping an eye on her if she's in the room kind of issues. Like, Shade's nuts, but Shade the Changing Man, I guess I'd sleep with one eye open with him too, and a big distance away from because of what I saw in Flashpoint. But I do feel that, like, Shade his intentions are good. Yeah. With what he's doing. So I like these quirks, though, like, as far as, who do I know is good for sure? Constantine is good for sure, although he'll make tough decisions as a good guy. Yeah. Deadman I consider to be a good guy for sure. Shade the Changing Man I consider to be a good guy, but very dangerous to be around. Zatanna, definitely good guy. All bets, I don't know, Mind Warp, I don't know how I'm going to feel about him, and Enchantress is going to be questionable at best. Could be very two-sided. I think June's a good person, but Enchantress clearly is not, and it's that duality that's going to be interesting between the two of them. And Xanadu, Court's still out, and same thing in Mind Warp. I don't know. It's fun. It's an intriguing book. I love when June's falling off, the edge. She's so panicked. She's not trying to kill herself there. She literally just trying to get away. And she goes falling off the edge, and Deadman saves her. And I love seeing that, leapt into the body. That's the funny thing. Even though he's dead, what happens to you emotionally if you're a dead person and somebody dies with you inside them? You know what I mean? The trauma of that, being a part of that experience, knowing, because he knows what they're going through prior to it. So you're put through that emotional trauma of her panic and then, pulling her back. What happens if you don't save her and you experience the death? You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. Like, he went to save her right there. What would happen if it didn't work?
Yeah, well, I think if he's in a body that dies, then I think that is a way for him to die.
I'm not even. I'm not talking about. Let's say it's not. I'm saying I'm going off the theory though. Let's say it's not, and I agree with you. I don't know. I don't think it doesn't, Jim. Because remember, we've seen him in DC Universe Presents where he's with a guy on death's door. Remember,
but then he jumps out at the last minute.
No, I thought he was in there when the guy died.
I thought
wasn't he with him right to the very end?
Yeah, but then at the last minute, he jumps out right at the last moment.
Huh. I don't know.
I thought. But
you might be right. I don't know.
Yeah, but emotionally, you talk about soldiers and, law enforcement and the various, like fire departments and the survivor's guilt, where when you're in the same firefight, you're in the same situation, you live, but your buddy dies. And there's that really heavy feeling that you got to deal with, the fact that you're still alive. Why am I alive and they're not? With him, I can only imagine that would escalate because he was inside the person. He was feeling what they're feeling. He got a piece of them, especially if a piece of that stays with him afterwards. If after that person's dead and gone, a part of them is still inside him, that would just really be a nasty experience.
I'm looking back at that issue of DC Universe Presents, and we waited together, and moments turned to minutes. And this is backing you up. And no one came. I stayed until the last possible moment, but I wasn't allowed to see it through. I had to let him go. I failed him. So he isn't allowed to see it. He's kind of like he's forced out at the moment of death, I'm guessing. So I'm guessing in the case if he tried saving her, I don't know that he would die. I think he's forced out when they die. Yeah. Like, he's not allowed to be in there with them. So he's forced out, and then he would be forced to watch her die, knowing that he didn't save her. Is that how you take that experience then? Is if he was forced out for that guy?
Yeah, probably. It probably kind of like boots him out, and so he's sitting then, overhead watching the final moments
that he would technically be responsible for, or consider himself responsible for. I guess that moment. So I don't know. There's something interesting about it. I like seeing the two of them together again afterwards, though. Like, there's a relationship blossoming here. We'd both be dead together and she'd never be able to have me again. Now, is she manipulating him there? Like saying, kill me so I can be with you versus being with her? Or does she really feel that way? Because I'm wondering now, I kind of question a little bit, is she so desperate to stay out of the Enchantress? Not that she's a bad person, don't get me wrong. I do feel that, that exterior that we see of her and the interior that is kind of presented there is true, but is she kind of appealing to his loneliness as a way to kind of protect herself there if the opportunity comes to it?
Oh, highly possible. Highly possible there. And, when I first read it, I didn't read it that way, but, as we're talking, I'm like, you know what, that could be definitely, she's trying to, make, there's a legitimate fear. She has a legitimate reason to be afraid and not want to go through that. And she's now trying to manipulate the scenes, manipulate what's going on to make sure that dead men would kill her by saying, hey, we'll be dead together. You and I could do something, and, kind of giving him another incentive above and beyond just the save me from this, nightmare.
And let me clarify, I'm throwing out different possibilities that are running through my head. I'm not 100% sold on that. It's more of is that a possibility, or can you take everything she's saying at face value and she's just really a good person? Because there's a part of me thinking, well, this is truly a good person, so no, she's not doing that. But I think that's when a character starts to become three-dimensional to you, you start looking at all angles and trying to see, I don't know her well enough to know that she wouldn't manipulate. I'm kind of in that place with her. You know what I mean? I don't know her well enough yet, so I'm a little suspect. And I might, next issue, have a reveal about her where I'm like, how could I have even thought that about her? Or the other way around going, I knew it. So, it's, you have those moments with people where you feel one way or another. And I don't know, I like that kind of... See, this is where this is why this conversation is why I'm so invested in this book. It's the development of the characters I'm really caring about more than one character. You'll see I'm picking out certain sequences. I love Zatanna Constantine sequence. I'm loving the stuff going on with Shade. This Dead Man and Enchantress stuff going on is really cool. What is up with Madame Xanadu, the Play-Doh girlfriend that the suit's making for him? The creep factor of that alone. Mentally, what would that do to you? Talk about I've had relationships in my time. We both have where it was you couldn't wait to let go of certain relationships, and then there's other relationships where you didn't want to let go of those relationships. Any human's been through that. This is a great example of, dude, have a talk out with somebody about the fact it's over. When you got this going on, dude, it was over a long time ago. This isn't her.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking that blowing her apart with that when he yells, "Get off me," that may be kind of an ending moment. I think he may be kind of pushing that aside, and I'm thinking he's getting to a point where the coat won't be making any more for him.
But who knows?
Yeah.
No, I do think that was him at this point. I'm with you. I thought that was the evolution of him. I wonder what other issues we're going to find out that he has along the way. But I'm with you. I think we see him in that moment, and I think this is going to be a him now that is better suited to be critical of Madame Xanadu, perhaps. Because we saw some of that in this issue with him. He's grown a lot in the 3 issues. I don't know if you felt that way. I've really enjoyed following Shade because we saw a guy who was really broken in issue 1, and gradually the circumstance and the purpose. I think that's part of the problem a lot of times. Why did he create her? He didn't know what his purpose was. And once he found his purpose and starts, having this goal to follow, there's I don't know if confidence in himself is the issue. Well, you know what? Yes. When somebody finds a purpose and a belief that they can accomplish something and that there's an importance to what they're doing, they start to find their purpose, and that starts to define them. And I don't know, it was something I really kind of dug about this whole thing, was seeing him kind of grow along the way. And that there's an intersection now with Constantine with him, who just there's no coincidence that Constantine's there. Constantine's following him. I love seeing him. You can see him in the bar in the first panel sitting over there, which I didn't notice the first time through. It wasn't until I read it again and I was looking back and I'm like, wait a minute, oh my gosh, Constantine was there right in the first panel watching him on the other side of the bar, and you just see him over by the beer bottle right to the right of it. That was him there.
I just noticed that now as you're talking about it.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
So, he was blending into the environment there, watching him, and we don't actually see him up close till later. But that was an example of where, wow, that was cool to reread this issue and notice some things I didn't notice in the artwork before. I like rereading because of this. This is why I tell people I should go back through, reread a couple of times, make sure to pay attention to the art, dialogue in different ways, see that kind of stuff. Somebody else might have noticed it right away, and hats off to you if you did. I didn't. It wasn't until another read-through for me that I picked that kind of stuff up. But it's always fun because do I catch everything? No. We have times on the show where people will call in. You'll catch things that I didn't catch that are super cool. I love this kind of stuff about comics, and it's an missed opportunity if you don't go back through at the price of comics and double check them and try to catch all the things that are going on.
Here's something else I just noticed right now as we're talking.
Yeah.
Okay, and in that whole same bar sequence, the two guys that are looking at that news story, the one guy has that greenish, bluish green hat watching. When you see Shade walking away, you're seeing that same guy, but it's now from the Constantine angle. If you follow where he's sitting and where the bodies are at the bar, they kept the angle correct, and it's kind of a nice attention to detail.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't notice it from that perspective. That's cool because I was focused on Shade. I didn't see that. Good catch. I like that. I like that too. I appreciate when an artist has attention to detail like that and throws those things in. And sometimes those are things that you aren't supposed to always notice in your read through. But it's something about setting up like on television. If you're shifting between character perspectives, you need to make sure that the environment shifts along with those characters. Otherwise, you don't get that sense of looking over one character's shoulder or the other. This is it very much is a cinematic approach, and sometimes we don't do that in television. Go, oh, it's cool that guy over at the bar was still over on the other side of the bar when you flipped over. But in a comic, especially when you're drawing it, it's really important that you do that to add kind of an ambiance and a mood. I like the bedroom.
Yes.
And he went there, and that Mind Warp Jay Young, that Secret Seven, and Dead Man the Flying Graysons from Flashpoint were both books that were on there. I mean, that was cool kind of stuff.
And that was something, and I'll admit, that was a second read-through that I noticed that. Yeah, and it was because my second read-through is usually my art read-through, where I'm not reading words, I'm just looking at the images. And throughout this sequence, I was noticing how, the storm in the background, and they went with kind of like a greenish tint in the night sky, and just the way they were laying out the colors. And I'm just going through just the usage of colors, the usage of this, how it was playing out. And that's when I started looking at the details on the bed, and that's when I saw those two comics right there. I was like, oh, that is awesome.
Now, Mind Warp's powers were very interesting when you get to see him and what he's going through and all the issues that were there. Because I don't know, wow, it's the sense of power. Is he a good guy or a bad guy? He looks like a creep.
Well, he kills the one guy and was getting ready to kill the lady. So it makes me wonder, again, what's he doing? Now, who is this person that he's killing? Maybe this is some, sicko psychopath who deserves death. But then would that mean the lady would, what's up with that? And again, I don't know who this is. I don't know what's going on with him, and I want to know.
I can do what I like and get away with it. There's no judge, no God who'll punish me. A Christian saint rots in the same oblivion as the foulest Nazi killer. So that kind of attitude is making me wonder, what is this guy's MO? The guy looked kind of thuggish that he was taken down. Mm-hmm. So, and especially with the fact that, the hookers in the bar and that type of thing. So what's, going on at this point? But does that mean that girl is deserving of that kind of treatment? I don't know. And I like that this goes to that gray area that I kind of like about this book. It's what is his deal? And then the ending where Dead Man and June end up hitting the Enchantress as kind of a cool... And she did that on purpose as a way to, I'm guessing, finally get her hands on June?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was the layout, because in the very beginning dialogue, she's sitting alongside the road saying, two of them will be here shortly. The two of them will be here shortly. So she knew, through whatever mystic reasoning, she knew those two were going to be coming that way. And it's probably her connection with June or the something with that. So I liked that whole... And it was funny because the way it played out, you have those kind of fun dialogue going back and forth between Deadman and her, where she's like, hey, how are you able to sit there? He's like, well, it's really an optical illusion. I'm just flying alongside. The hardest part is looking so sexy while I do it. And I'm laughing because it's just some friendly little dialogue, and then thump, they hit something, and sure enough, it's Enchantress. I was like, that was a great play, nice, fun, friendly. Bam! Okay, I'm going to eat your soul.
And what an interesting manipulation. That was one of the things I liked about the sequence, was the fact that I'm like, oh my gosh, she let herself be hit on purpose, which was one of the bits that I like. Because I kept saying, when I first read it through, I'm like, oh my gosh, was that who I think it was? And I loved how that just played out. I don't know. It's a cool and interesting book. And I'm heavily invested in this book right now. And it was very early on, this book grabbed me, which not, all the titles in the New 52 have had this kind of feel for me. Some of them have taken 3 issues for me to get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm really enjoying it. And, there's no title in the New 52 that I'm looking at, wow, I really want to drop that title. I've got titles that are good reads. I'm enjoying them. I'm glad I'm reading them right now. I have titles that, like, wow, with every issue, I'm like, really, like this one, I'm really compelled for the next issue. Not every title has that kind of feel for it, but this one definitely has that feel like, well, I can't wait to see what's going to come next. Like, what are they doing? And are they going to immediately bond back together? If so, how are they going to feel about it? How's Deadman going to take that? Or is he going to help June try to stay away from her? What are they supposed to do? And I don't know. This is really cool.
Yeah, and I like the teaser for next issue. It's like, next, more death, more destruction, more mayhem.
Mm-hmm. And I want more.
Yeah.
So it's another cool book.
Could you just once say, let's get in the car? Is that so hard?
Want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. Remember, that's always in our show notes and available on our website as well. So please make sure to call us, and we're going to have show voicemails back once again next episode. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, this is the time to head on over to the site and check out the amazing deals they're going to be offering for December. It's one of my favorite times of the month to see all kinds of discounts that they have on single titles, trade paperbacks, hardcovers, things like that for pre-ordering. And then, to see what they're doing with the New 52, with the deals they continue to offer on this wonderful new line of comics. So I want to thank DCBService.com for providing amazing pre-order discounts. Over at InStockTrades.com, the Cyber Monday sale is still going on as of when I'm recording this. 42% off all of the major publishers, plus they've got up to 80% off a majority of these major clearance titles they've got going on, 50% off of things like DC's Archive editions. This is the time to grab things at an amazing discount. Also a good time to get some holiday gifts for people. If you're going to get them at those kind of discounts, it's a chance, at 42% off and more, it's really like you're buy one, get one free for any friends and family members who you're thinking of shopping for. So head on over to InStockTrades.com. Remember, once again, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. Great chance to get some amazing discounts and save on shipping. Jim, our next episode I'm going to be a little vague on because we have a couple options going and that we're trying to work out. So we will definitely be back next week with a brand new show, and we'll see you then.
Bye!
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see, Hawkman, your plan, and what you do to me, Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian, working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see.